Welcome to this week's episode of Campbell and Jones Meet the Monsters, the podcast where we explore the cinematic legacy of the classic monsters. I'm John Campbell. With me, as always, Brendan Jones.
Hello, John Campbell. Hello, listeners.
Yes, Brendan, it's been a long time coming, but we're finally bringing the Count himself to the 1970s.
We're doing our bare minimum to bring the Count into the 1970s.
It is 1972, AD 1972, and Dracula is here.
Anno Domini, 1972. Other working titles were originally Dracula Chelsea, 1972.
I don't like that.
Then Dracula Today.
I like that. I like that because it sounds like his morning talk show. Welcome back to Dracula Today. We're gonna
look deeply into my eyes and purchase these things from my sponsor.
Today's guest, the Wolfman, is joining us, talking about his new book.
Hairballs, you know I got them. This film, we'll talk about it because we haven't even off mic spoken about our feelings for it, but man, I've seen this one a long time ago when I was a kid, but this is one of the biggest whiffs. We're gonna swing for the fences, but we just missed the ball entirely.
I think this has problems, but it's still one of my favorites. I still do love AD 1972, but you're right in that you're right in that it should be so much better, but the highs are pretty high here.
Sure.
There are some moments in it that I love. But now, then there's the entire middle section of the movie that I don't. So
as I said before with other films we've done lately, this latter period Hammer, which is heading towards their end, sadly, or at least they kind of wind down as the box office starts failing and they start running out of money. But there's so much disdain for the latter Hammer films. There's so much that they don't tend to really give you much background. But I do have a couple of factoids about this one before we jump in.
Yeah.
Now, in my, I'll say this. I would love to think that this movie was the stroke of inspiration, that someone at Hammer was like, I've got it. But this was essentially a commission. This is what happened. Warner Brothers over in the U.S. of A, which is where we live, John.
That's right.
Yeah. Yeah. And
I knew that sounded familiar.
Our listeners do get confused because we do so many crazy accents.
And we keep getting that's what's accurate UK accents.
Yeah, I know.
We do.
Where are you actually from? But anyway, the Warner Brothers saw the success, the really unexpected success of American International Pictures' Count Yorga Vampire in 1970.
Which a stay tuned for next season because we may be talking about that movie.
Yeah. And that one I actually do recommend. It's fun. The second one is terrible. The Return of Count Yorga.
We'll be talking about both. So
yeah. But it was a surprise success that actually made a studio sit up and go, "Damn, those AIP guys might be onto something." And the whole thing with Count Yorga was essentially, it's modern day, and a fancy European vampire wakes up in the modern day and hits up those swinging 70s folks.
And at least following this, is this picture swinging or what?
Oh boy. All I'm saying is break out your your bell bottoms. I'd say bell bottoms. You'll definitely want to get your forehead scarves and various weird jewelries ready.
And hey man, all you was it Stone Ground fans?
Oh my God! Oh, I actually do have another little factoid on that. But so Warner Brothers went to Hammer and said, "Dudes, take your Christopher Lee Dracula, put him in the modern day. And Hammer literally said, huh, we never thought of that.
Now that you say it, that's not a bad idea. Seeing as we've completely run out of Dracula ideas.
Pretty much. And this one's written by a guy who had not worked on any of the previous
Dracula films. I did definitely clock that name as a total new entry here.
Same with the director. Yep. They went like, let's bring in fresh blood, no pun intended. Mm-hmm. They did. And before this was even finished, they already greenlit the sequel because Warner Brothers said, we want 2 of them at least. Which Warner Brothers regretted because they put the money up. But the critical response to this one that we're about to talk to was so not great, and the box office was so not great, that Warner Brothers was like, fuck it, whatever, go ahead and do the second one. They didn't even release the second one, The Satanic Rites of Dracula, in the U.S. until 6 years after it was done.
Yes.
Because they just did not give a shit.
That certainly, when I was putting the list together to come up with what order we need to do these in terms of release, that was a confusing thing. I was like, whoa, yep. How is this one so much later?
Oh, wait, they did them back to back. They literally did them back to back, but the U.S. releases.
Because in the U.K., they just knew, man, people were going to go crazy for modern day Dracula.
Mm-hmm. So anyway, that's one tidbit. It's just basically the background. This wasn't a Hammer inspiration. It was a Warner Brothers inspiration that Hammer said, sure, we'll work to order.
It's a good idea, though. Warner Brothers is right.
Warner Brothers is right. Good idea. If you handle it well, if you do it well, and we will talk about.
It suffers from a lot of the same problems that a lot of the Dracula movies do, but it has one thing over those other Dracula sequels. One hugely important thing.
Which was 14 years coming. Was putting Van Helsing and Dracula against each other in a film again.
That's the thing, and I've been complaining about that. Dracula has not had a legit rival to go up against really in any of these other movies. Not anybody who actually posed a threat to him. We didn't have a strong hero in those movies.
Our listeners will not be surprised, and in fact have probably already turned this off, to know that the MVP of this movie is once again Peter Cushing, who salvages anything.
Well, because the parts of the movie that don't work are all the parts that he's not in. When he's on screen, I think this movie's cooking.
Yeah,
but when he goes away, and especially,
I'll say that it's not necessarily the actor's fault. There's
no. I don't mean that, but just in terms of the characters. When we move away from Van Helsing, I lose a lot of interest. But when Van Helsing's there, I'm on board.
So before we get to talking about the poster, which we will,
and
the film itself, the last factoid I have, which was something I was very surprised to find out when I was doing my research, is the year 1972 actually sued this film for defamation.
None of this happened in 1972.
Like, I think this movie gives me a bad name. Look at the way these people are dressed. Listen to the way they're talking. Listen to this batshit inappropriate score to this movie. Holy God, the score. Well,
they want to hit the 70s hard, man.
Yeah, Stone Grounds is one thing, but they're out of the movie by 10 minutes in. It's the score that I'm sitting there literally just going, no. Oh my God, it's insane. Okay, but
I do. Okay, my favorite factoid, by the way, though, is that the movie was renamed Dracula 73 because it was released in 1973 in France and Spain.
That's right. Because you know what, movies have an expiration date.
Yeah.
If they see that Dracula's walking around, but it was last year, they're like, "Who cares?"
Oh,
that's so 1972.
What is this? The Dracula is last year's movie.
Stone Grounds, they're not even together anymore. That's one little factoid. That was is that they were a last-minute replacement. That is an American band that had no hits.
I see that here. It was supposed to be The Faces.
The Faces with Rod Stewart. That would have been pretty amazing, actually.
Well, it certainly would have been a more notable thing if Rod Stewart was in this movie.
Yeah, because the Faces were a legit group that had legit hits, and they just.
What, you're saying Stone Ground is? I'd never heard of stone ground before.
Oh, all right, yeah. Well,
Uh,
let's jump in.
let's talk about this poster, which is something.
It is.
We're once again going monochrome here. It's heavy orange and purple.
It's trippy, man.
Oh, it is the 70s, baby.
I think this is the American poster.
It looks like, because it's got a Warner Brothers logo on it. So
yeah, well, so does the Brit one, because Warner Brothers backed it.
I guess that's true, but it looks like it's.
Yeah, this has the feel.
I like whatever. I like whatever the that sideways one that's more colorful is. That's a lot better.
Yeah, that is. Actually.
It's got actually all the same images. They're just used differently. They're laid out differently, and it's a lot cooler.
Yeah, but this one is very pop art, bright, like neon orange, neon purple, and red, and it's got like solarized, posterized version of a photo of Christopher Lee. He's wide-eyed. He's got the blood dribble.
It's another Dracula pose where he's like, "What?"
Yeah. Yeah.
Huh?
I love that. It's such a trope of Dracula that he has like the blood trickle in the mouth, and all I can think is Dracula is from the 15th century.
Yeah,
just a messy eater.
Oh,
crazy.
God, yeah.
You think like if I find out I've got like some barbecue sauce or something, like it's like I do the thing with the tongue. I stick out. I get it. I try to remove it. Dracula's like, no, I'm wearing this proudly. Okay.
No, that's what I like about Dracula. Is he's like, what? You gonna say something about it?
I love the idea of one of his thralls going, Master, you got a little thing right here. You got.
I know.
He says, "It is my will," which I think is actually his first words in this movie. I
think it might be. To be fair, he doesn't say a ton in this movie, but almost everything he says does kind of rule, though, in this movie.
Yeah, it's all very, badass Dracula-y stuff.
And that's another thing, too, that I will say the one thing that using Dracula less in these movies annoys me, but when he does show up, I get very excited.
Yeah, I know you do. We've talked about it, and it makes me uncomfortable.
Yeah.
So over his shoulder, we have Stephanie Beacham.
Yep.
Sort of, I think that's the scene where she's laid out on the jukebox, which.
Yep.
Oh boy! Wow. Where
with just a great angle down that shirt.
And her vampirized boyfriend who feels her up.
Yep.
Poor
Bob.
Poor Bob. But her hand is reaching up, breaking that bar of color into just the orange, and breaking into the tagline, "Please, John, let the people hear this tagline."
This tagline's amazing. The Count is back with an eye for London's hot pants. ... and a taste for everything.
Bram Stoker in his grave is sitting there trying to wrap his dead brain around with an eye for London's hot pants. I think he did rise up briefly. Probably walked a few steps trying to find whoever wrote this tagline and then crumbled back to dust.
Find me this country's greatest hot pants.
With an eye for London's hot pants. And a taste for everything.
And a taste for everything.
Oh, Jesus. All right.
Oh, so I'm looking to do just anything tonight, gentlemen. I got a taste for everything.
So underneath the big Count picture, the purple part...
It's kind of all the other images just jammed together.
Yeah. You get sexy Stephanie Beacham in an outfit I don't think she wears in the movie.
She definitely does not.
You get a chalice, which is featured. You get Carolyn Monroe with her head tilted back. Ooh, that Carolyn Monroe.
Yes, with the chalice on her chest that is on her chest in the movie. I think that's all one picture
absolutely. There. That is legit. Then we get a speeding, cool-ass car that is not in the film.
To indicate it's the 1970s.
Yeah, and we get my favorite part.
Yes, mine too.
A woman in a bikini with long hair. It's her full body.
Yeah.
She's not connected to the triangle, the pyramid of the other pictures. She's just off to the side of it. Her head's turned, so we don't even see her face. She's looking back like she's on the beach going, "What?
Yeah.
Oh, did I leave my towel? Oh, okay."
She's turned.
Or did you want anything from the snow cone van? What the fuck does that have to do with anything?
So
there is no woman in a bikini.
No, that it's so random, and I don't know what it has to do with anything. If you click over to the what I think is the British poster, which is all the same images but just rearranged differently in vivid color, but they have not a woman in a bikini, but just far off in the distance, just sort of sketches of two women,
go-go chicks,
who just look lost.
Yeah, they're kind of like going, no, they said that the number 12 picks you up here.
Yeah.
Is this where?
Can anyone help us?
We're trying to get to Chelsea, 1972.
We're two stranded go-go girls. Hello.
And I guess they're Americans. Yeah.
Yeah. Hello. We're not from this country, okay? I don't know.
Oh, look, there's a speeding car.
Yeah.
Stop.
No. Oh, no. Must be driving to that woman being choked. But this one has a different tagline.
Go
ahead. It says, "New from Hammer," which I love because it sounds like a toy commercial. The time, now. The place, what? Kings Road, Chelsea. The killer, Count Dracula.
Dude, again, these are elements that should have worked. These are elements that get me excited.
Yeah. And there are times that the movie delivers on this. And then there are times when it does. What we don't get, and I'll just say this up front before we actually get into the movie. What we don't get is Dracula actually wandering the streets of 70s London. We don't get him going, "What's this?"
It's just, okay.
Him wandering into a discotheque.
I need to make a...
I mean, how do you not do that? How do you not do that? It's insane.
As a writer.
Yeah.
Myself, or it wouldn't even take a writer. These are obvious things you would put in. And I sit here going, is this the biggest missed opportunity of the entire film? Yes. If you were putting Dracula in AD 1972, put him in AD 1972.
Yeah.
Don't leave him in one building, which is like a desecrated church, a gothic-y looking church, and that's the only place we ever see him.
Mm-hmm.
Show him walking the streets.
Yeah.
Show him seeing cars for the first time. I mean, don't play it necessarily for comedy, but this guy is centuries years old, and he gets woken up in a new century, and he just stays like a shut-in in one place. He doesn't go out and see the world. Give me a break.
I know. That's
me
what,
off a piece of that Kit Kat bar.
That's what we wanted, man. Him walking around going, "These hippies."
Yeah.
I want him going to a Stone Ground concert going, "I don't care for this."
Mm-hmm. God damn it, I want that.
Lean into it, he goes, "Dig that funky sound." I don't know. Go any direction with it, man.
They could have gone comedic with it. I'm glad they didn't, but they certainly could have. I mean, Love at First Bite does that.
Yeah.
And actually, to a certain degree, one of the reasons that the Night Stalker TV movie works so well from 1973, and we will be talking about it.
Oh, yes.
Is the fact that it is a centuries-old vampire. He's not as old as Dracula, and he never says a damn word of dialogue. Mm-hmm. But the thrill of seeing what you think of as a classic-ish vampire walking the modern-day streets in Las Vegas, and he's going through casinos, and he's stalking women in back alleys. This is what I want in the world. Put that vampire in the world.
Instead, we get probably a happy Christopher Lee going, "I'll just do all of my scenes in this one spot, and then you can shoot me out in a couple days."
He did probably the scene in the prequel scene at the beginning of the movie, which is supposed to be back in 1872, which doesn't make any sense. He did that probably in a day, and then he did his other scenes for this film. I'm guessing maybe 2 days.
Yep.
I'm saying this guy probably shot 3 days on this movie.
Well, how about the fact, here's another piece of trivia that I love here from IMDb, the fact that this movie was released only 2 days before a movie called Horror Express that also starred Peter Cushing and Christopher Lee.
And is actually pretty fun.
Oh, I really like Horror Express. That one, number one, I think Lee's a lot happier to be there than playing Dracula again.
Yeah, exactly.
I wonder if any of this though was made more fun by having Peter Cushing here as opposed to the other Dracula movies. Because I think these two guys liked each other, didn't they?
Yeah, oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
They were dear friends. But I have a feeling that it became rote. And in fact, Michael Carreras told people in the press, because they said, it seems like Christopher Lee is never happy in these Dracula films, that he always complains about it. And he goes, yeah, well, here's the thing. If Chris went around saying, I have never been happier, I'm so excited to be back, this will be the best one yet, I hope we never stop doing them, you would stop talking to him. So Michael Carreras of Hammer was like going, dudes, he's just going to always be cranky, and he's always going to complain about it.
Because it's my thing.
It's his thing. But I will also say that he had reasons to be cranky.
Sure.
At the same time, was he probably delighted to be, anytime it was him and his buddy Peter in a movie together? Yeah, that made it much better, I am sure.
Yeah. Not that they're in the movie together that much, but they're in some key sequences. And those are the best sequences in the movie.
They get to grapple at each other, which is your thing.
I love me a monster grappling.
I know it's a weird. It goes back to when you used to do Greco-Roman wrestling.
I did. That was a big part of my background. Yeah, I was
seeing men, even if they're very formally dressed, grappling. I
actually would say, especially if they're very formally dressed. That really does it for me. Let me quickly run through these other taglines from some other posters. We read those two. Here's one that's unfortunately he doesn't have an eye for hot pants this time. This one says, "The Count is back with an eye for London's young blood." Now that's a lot better than London's hot pants.
It is, but London's hot pants. I'm sorry, which I think that might be the name of my next band, is London's Hot Pants. That's great.
I love this one that's just for lovers of the occult.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
Dracula's coffin opened this year. He's among us now.
Damn.
Look out, man. And on a similar note, past, present, or future, never count out the Count.
Never count out the Count.
Yeah.
That's pretty good.
Yeah. And then finally, my favorite. Grave news for people who thought all vampires lived last century.
That's stupid.
Yeah. Too bad. They're here now. There's one of them that's walking around right now, pal.
Is it too late to fire the people that came up with that?
It's just a little too late, yeah, unfortunately.
Damn it.
They've already cashed their checks. and they're probably dead.
Yeah. That's the unspoken thing.
Yeah. I don't know, though. Maybe 72. A lot of these people are probably still alive at this point.
Hey, I was alive in 72. I was 3 years old. Are you kidding me? I was in the first one in the theaters when this opened.
You were psyched for this, I know.
Yeah. I had moved on to solid foods, and I was ready for some Dracula.
Well, Stephanie Beacham's still with us.
Yeah. Stephanie Beacham is actually someone who had a legit career.
Oh, definitely.
And she's good in this. Just that there's not good stuff for her.
Yeah, that is true. And Carolyn Monroe did some stuff.
She did. She's not the actress that that Stephanie Beacham is. Carolyn Monroe is certainly
in a Bond picture, though.
Yeah,
007
of course.
Corner. She's in The Spy Who Loved Me.
And she's in Star Crash. Is it Star Crash?
Oh God, yeah.
That thing.
Star Crash with a young David Hasselhoff.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah. Star Crash, where she plays the character of Stella Starr.
Yep. It's real cheap cash in on Star Wars,
and maybe the ultimate example of Christopher Plummer taking a paycheck.
Oof. Yeah, literally shot like somewhere else, and then they cut him in like with some it's a hologram. It's like, no, that guy was never near these sound stages.
Yeah. What's this?
It's also
what's
a movie
this we're shooting today? Star Trek. Okay, whatever. Fine. Just give me the lines.
It has a C-3PO-esque android that talks like a Texan cowboy.
Oh my God, that's the best part of the movie. Do yourself a favor.
Stella, I'll do it. Are you okay, Stella Star?
If you have any interest in Star Crash, fire up that MST3K of it. That's the way to experience Star Crash. There's also a How Did This Get Made episode about it. So. Yeah.
Nice.
So that's the way to experience Star Crash on its own.
Yeah, that's right.
I
remember that.
Not recommended by your doctor.
June was very concerned about the comfort level of the bikinis that they were wearing.
She's
like, it's like a diaper. I don't think that could be comfortable when they're running. I'm like, you're right, June.
Yeah,
that looks like a diaper.
So let's dive in here. Dracula AD 1972, and what I'm going to say. This is the best opening scene of one of these movies.
Oh man, we're almost instantly in contrast there.
What? This movie opens the way I've wanted one of these to open. Van Helsing, Dracula, locked in combat. We just start this picture running, man. They're fighting atop an out-of-control stagecoach. And I am like, oh my God, this is everything I wanted here. I want these dudes fighting.
No, I love them fighting. Well, I do. I love them fighting. But, right off the bat, they tell us that this is essentially kind of supposedly their version of the end of the Dracula novel. Mm-hmm. Except, okay, they're fighting in Hyde Park in London. That's not the end of Dracula. Also, they're saying 1872. I'm like, I know that they wanted to make it exactly a century so that he wakes up a century later. But Dracula is like 1889 or 1893. People still debate the actual dating of the story. And it ends in Transylvania. It doesn't end in Hyde Park with them on a stagecoach and no one else around. Also, Lawrence Van Helsing? Lawrence? Fuck you, says Brendan Jones to the movie. Yeah, I'm a nitpicker. I'm a Dracula.
I was gonna say none of those are the hard. None of those do anything to dilute my enjoyment of this opening sequence.
And you are welcome. But here's another thing that has nothing to do with them going wildly off source material. Mm-hmm. The way they shoot this opening, which I want to be enjoying, is like a silent movie. It's so campily over the top that I was like, no. And they do lots of drawing things out, which is weird when they're doing this sort of fast motion thing. But like the whole I've been impaled by the wheel of the cart. You're like, great, we got it. And then we get that Van Helsing is going to shove it into his chest, which I do think is badass.
I love it.
But we know that's going to happen. But they cut back between them, and Van Helsing's creeping over, and Dracula's going, no, seriously, this thing's in my chest. Then they cut back to Van Helsing going, I'm almost there, just you wait. And then cut back to Dracula going, no, do you see it? It's like, ow, it's in there. And then finally Van Helsing gets on top, he's like, I'm gonna push it through. He's like, no, ow, it's hurting. And they're cutting to the guy riding on the horse, and you're like, who's the guy on the horse? And just like, this could go, the editing, I was like, God damn it, try to be concise.
I kind of like that it's Van Helsing with his last dying energy is creeping towards him to finish off his mortal enemy. I just like this is the final battle between these two guys. I'm into it.
If that's the final battle between the two, I would also like a little dialogue. And there's none. It's just Dracula going, and it's Van Helsing going, and I'm like, come on, say something, god damn it. Look how angry I am.
I was psyched. I would have preferred some dialogue too, but I'll take what I can get. Especially based on. I mean, I will say some of this I'm reacting to having seen these previous Dracula movies. So this is a breath of fresh air. We've got energy, we've got action, we've got Van Helsing back.
Yes, and he's bloodied, and again, never a false note. No. He's selling it. And it's he looks like this is my grim mission, which is what I want from Van Helsing.
Oh, hell yeah.
That's awesome. But we see a guy in a black cloak on a horse racing up from somewhere, and a black hat.
Yeah, because when he does finally kill Dracula of course turns to dust.
Yes, he does,
as vampires want to do. And,
they do.
This guy comes up and sees that Van Helsing has also died. and he collects a little bit of that dust in like a test tube looking thing.
Yeah, like a vial.
Vial, that's the word I'm looking for.
And he doesn't collect like all of it. I always think that's interesting. It's like, man, if someone's been turned to dust and you're going to recreate them, don't you need all the dust? He just takes something like, here's a sampling.
Not when you're dealing with dark magic, apparently. You just need a little bit.
And he takes the stake with him, like, souvenir.
Mm-hmm.
And then...
See that on my wall? That's the stake that killed Dracula.
No, he doesn't take it home. We see what he does with it really soon.
Because we cut to Van Helsing's funeral, and we pan over from that funeral to see this guy digging. And
it's really weird. I mean, I know that they're setting this up just so it could be in proximity to the churchyard where Van Helsing is buried.
This guy just being like, Dracula would want to be buried near Van Helsing.
Sure. What's weird is not only that, I mean, let's say that is the thing. He's like,
it was in his will, man.
Yeah, the master wants to be close to Van Helsing's grave. Okay. But why has he picked the day of the funeral and it's broad daylight? Who's that creeper over there outside the funeral?
Once again, these were Dracula's last wishes. These were all in the last will and testament, man.
The mysterious guy who's a youngster with kick-ass, fake glued-on sideburns. He buries the ashes of Dracula in just like he makes a hole in the ground.
Yeah,
puts the ashes in there, and then sticks a stake in there into that hole in the ground to like go, this is where it is, in case I need to find it later.
Yeah, better put this here as a marker. And then as he's walking away, he's like, "Damn, I could have got some money for that thing."
Yeah. Oh shit, that was.
But then I do really like this when the camera pans to the sky, and all of a sudden a plane appears in it, and it goes Dracula A.D. 1972.
It's pretty great. We have been in supposedly 1872, which, as some people, of course, on IMDb like going, though this is the next film in the Dracula series of Hammer, the placing of the prequel scene in 1872 means this is not canonically tied to any of the previous films. So this and Satanic Rites are their own little series.
To which is a classic use of shut up nerds from me.
Yeah, and I can sit there going, really, continuity has been the least of their...
Oh, yeah. You want to make any of this stuff fit together? I just put these on and enjoy them. I'm not trying to make them fit together.
Amen, sister, and I know you're a male. Anyway,
that's how good that statement was. It defied gender.
But I did like that transition. It was cool. They're in the churchyard. You see the stake. You see Van Helsing's grave. Camera swoops up, and then a plane flies over.
Yeah.
Badass.
Yeah.
Boom. Dracula 1972.
And I will say the movie proceeds to lose me for a good chunk of time after this, though. I'm way in on this movie at this point.
It instantly loses almost all the Oh my god, because we cut to instantaneously we're at a party.
Well, we get this whole opening title sequence where we're just driving through the traffic of London. We're on highways.
Sure, yeah.
And the music is going.
And that's fine. I expected this. Like, hey, we're gonna sell you on the fact the plane wasn't enough. Look at these cars.
I did.
Look at these people in their short skirts.
In the opening titles, though, when it says "and introducing Stoneground performing the following songs," I was like, "Uh-oh." That's not good.
I was saying, uh-oh, but then I said in my head, well, those songs will be on the soundtrack, and they certainly won't be back-to-back.
That's what I assumed.
Oh, no.
That's what I assumed as well, and I still was saying, uh-oh. So imagine my shock when it was even worse.
It was so much worse.
Because we cut to the most happening party, man.
This is what I love about this, okay? We're in a rich person mansion, and there's a weird mix of, you got some cool hippie types who are all, of course, movie version of hippie types, where they're far out, man, but they're also extremely clean and pretty-ish.
One of my favorite things in this movie is that these are hippies who don't do drugs, They drink responsibly.
Oh my god, they all get a round of Cokes at the bar.
Oh, that's what that. Shit. I know when that came out, I was like, "What's going on here?"
They talk about grass, but we don't see no drugs.
They pass on grass, though, man.
Well, in this ritzy party, you've got hippie types. You've got the live band, which we cut to a lot. This is Stoneground, ladies and gentlemen.
Stoneground.
And
this might as well be Stillwater from Almost Famous. Like that's all I could keep thinking about is like
except for that was an actual good fake band.
Yeah.
This was an actual band.
This was a bad real band.
That
was a good fake band. This is a bad real band.
A bad real band.
All I could think about too, and it's stuck in my head, and I know these are the wrong lyrics, but just as when he goes, "He's an alligator man in an alligator world." I know that's wrong, but that's what I want to say.
That's
it's Alligator Man is accurate, but I know the next line isn't Alligator World, but that's all I kept singing around my apartment after I watched this.
It seems like that's what you needed.
Yeah.
You jumped the gun. That we're first hearing them saying, "You better come through."
See, that one didn't stick in my head as much as Alligator Man did.
No, Alligator Man sticks out much more because the lyrics are about him being an alligator man. Who had Spanish moss for a bed. I remember at one point that's a lyric.
Fuck that song, man. God, that's awful.
They are an American band. They're not pretending that they came from maybe the old...
They are an American band, and they are coming to your town.
Yeah. You shouldn't know that song, John. You are a young feller.
I grew up, though, with my father deciding what radio station was on. Yeah.
Rock.
Yeah. Never veering away from that classic rock station. It never left the dial on that, and my dad's car drive me to school.
That's all right. You got a proper education.
I did. Yeah.
But okay, so we're talking about the hipsters that are dancing around, but also at this party,
this is my favorite part.
Rich old folks
who are horrified.
They are horrified, and you know what's really great is how subtle they are at doing this. This is like a laugh-in skit because they keep cutting to these old people close-ups of their faces as they're going, "Oh my god!"
My favorite one is there's a shot of a girl dancing at a table, and the table is in front of a couch where there's an old woman just clinging to her husband, going like, "No, never in my life,
any skirt." There's no explanation of what's going on, really. So, in my head, I'm going, why are these old people upset? Isn't this their party?
Because I thought it was a happening party, but then I thought, wait a minute, have hippies invaded the home of someone? Which is kind of what is happening.
That is exactly what happened.
Because
we get introduced to the young man, who I assume is the son of perhaps the people who own the house.
Yeah, Charles.
And he's a rich, proper young man. And he's just as shocked as the old people.
And a fucking nerd in his glasses, although maybe kind of hip in a Michael Caine sort of way in this era.
Sure. Yeah, no, he's very nerdy, rich dude. But the parents are like going, "You said that, for your birthday that you were going to have the band Stoneground." But he goes, "I only invited the band.
Yeah.
I don't know any of these people. They just showed up."
Which is also pretty sad, though. He was going to have a party with just the band playing just for him in this house.
Just for him and these old people.
What a fucking loser.
What kind of party was that going to be?
They're having a better party, man. You should be happy, Charles.
He doesn't know any of the... Except for I think there is one young rich girl. She's the one that gets her dress zipped down.
That's right.
Because I think she's the straight-laced rich one who's like, "I kind of like these hippies." Anyway, so the rich old people tell him, get rid of them. So he goes and he calls the cops.
Yes, he calls the fuzz.
I have to say, we are also introduced very quickly to one of the hippies who, for his entire appearance in this, is dressed as a monk. That's his hippie thing.
Yep.
He's wearing a cassock.
Yep.
And he is the stereotypical, "I'm the funny one in my group. I'm the Jason of my group."
Yes. It's him going, "Hey, Charlie, great party, man."
And he looks at the old lady who's like Charlie's mom or whatever and goes, You remind me a lot of my dad. And it's like, oh, that's crazy because she's a woman.
Is he the
Like,
guy who
what
also ends up taunting her and breaking the statue? Is that him as well?
No.
That's Johnny,
That's
right?
Johnny.
Because that establishes him as the villainous one of the. That's what I thought.
Oh my god. So
I can't. We'll get to, but when the fact that they bring back Alucard in this movie,
I know. I can't even.
I'm like, man, they're just giving us an excuse to do our running bit now, as if we needed one.
Oh, they go farther than that, but
they do our bit for us in this movie.
Guy in the monk outfit who is the funny one in the hip group, who actually never dies. He's the one whole
he just disappears.
He does. Yeah. He does. He's the one that never.
The thing I kept thinking about with him is that he is the prankster character from a Friday the 13th movie.
That was what I was about to say. He's the one that immediately strikes me as he's the one that has to die first.
Yeah.
Because he's the irritating one that the audience is supposed to be like, he's a lovable scamp. So his death will really hit home.
Yeah.
No. Yeah. And he did. He reminded me of the token nerdy funny guy in one of those slasher films. Yeah. But suddenly,
why doesn't he get a harpoon to the chest in this thing, man? You know, that would
by the end of the movie, he and our leading lady are the only two survivors of this group.
I just wanted Dracula to be like, oh, this guy.
I know.
You know what? He's not even worth drinking. That's why he lives, because he's too annoying to drink his blood. Dracula's like, ugh.
We've already brought him up, but this little group consists of Stephanie Beacham playing
Jessica Van Helsing.
Jessica Van Helsing. We don't find out she's a Van Helsing until a little bit later. Her boyfriend Bob. Who's a hippie, but he's still sort of one of the. Both he and Jessica are like we're not quite as groovy.
Yeah, ones. Right.
There's the sexy black one.
What is her name? Is that Anna?
Is it Anna?
It might not be Anna. I just kept writing other girl because I didn't get her. Oh, it's Gaynor. Right?
Her name is Gaynor?
Marcia A. Hunt as Gaynor.
I don't think they call her Gaynor. I think they give her a different name. That may be her character's last name.
That's what it's credited as on.
Yeah, you're right. That is the actress, so that's the character. But I don't think they ever call her Gaynor.
I don't remember them calling her anything. Honestly, I had a lot of trouble with the names in this group.
Yeah,
they are so other than Bob and Johnny and Jessica and Laura. Because they keep saying, "Where's Laura? What happened to Laura?" I haven't seen Laura, so she actually is the one I knew the most.
Anna is the blonde one who really doesn't get much to say or do, though she does have a fairly vital, like, I'm going to give you exposition later in the movie.
Oh, we apparently saw this actress in The Vampire Lovers as well. So
yes,
yeah,
yes, we did. Just like we saw Johnny Alucard in Lust for a Vampire when he played. Yes. Johnny Alucard, who we will be talking about extensively, we saw him in Lust for a Vampire playing Hans.
Yes.
So we have a couple of people coming back.
And also Christopher Neame, and also belongs in 007 Corner. He appeared in Timothy Dalton in License to Kill.
Oh.
Yes.
I've got a license to kill.
Yeah, who could forget Gladys Knight with License to Kill.
That's an okay one.
It's fine. It's a real middle ground one.
She is better than that song.
She is.
Kind of want Gladys Knight to have gotten a better one, but whatever.
Yeah, because it just seems like Gladys Knight doing Bond is perfect. But
I do like the I got a license to kill, and it goes to kill. Like it has the voice on you.
Yeah.
To kill.
I think
you didn't get it.
I like Living Daylights by Aha more in terms of the Dalton songs.
Yeah, again, that's Duran Duran Weak Sauce though. That's the kid brother of Duran Duran.
It is, but
Daylights.
This is part, the Living Daylights.
Bond themes.
Yeah.
And again, you guys come back in about 20 minutes. I'll be done.
And I frequently am playing the themes to Bond, like in my car and stuff. So
underneath the mango tree, me honey and me.
I still stand by. That's one of my pieces of trivia. Who's the only Bond to sing on film? And it's Connery. He sings that song.
Yeah, he sings it very briefully
to Ursula Andress.
is all I need him to.
Underneath the mango tree, my lord. Yes. Do I have to do this?
And there'll be more monks with ink stains on their fingers. Sorry, a little Name of the Rose for you. Anyway,
yes, the much beloved Name of the Rose, which actually is a good movie.
Actually, is great.
It's a great movie. Well, I feel like people don't talk about it though.
I mean, I was gonna say it should have become a mystery series, but Umberto Eco only wrote one book with that character.
But I wanted to see Connery back.
But I love it, like the proto Sherlock Holmes as a 15th century monk or 16th.
And in classic fashion, still fucking Scottish as hell, man.
Oh yeah, of course. Doesn't matter where he is. He's a Russian sub-commander. Yes. They're calling me Ivor. Anyway, moving on. So Johnny Alucard is the other member of this group, and he is familiar to us because
he's the mysterious writer from the beginning of the movie.
But he's not. They really take a long time before they explain he's just like with Van Helsing. He's a descendant of the guy.
I love these horror movies where the descendants are they look exactly the same always.
The same actor. Yeah, it's like a few generations later, it's just the same actor.
Same guy.
We all look alike.
Yeah. What are you gonna do?
But Johnny Alucard is the dangerous hip one.
You can tell there's something about him. There's something a little darker. There's something a little edgier.
Yeah.
He gave me
Ralph Bates.
No, what I was gonna say, I think what they're going for is a Malcolm McDowell, is who I thought they were trying for.
Well, and he's not unconvincing as look, guys, I'm with you, but I'm also dangerously sexy, seductive guy. He fits the bill. Again, I don't think he's
that bad in this.
No,
I think he's fine. And looking through his career, he played a lot of mysterious, sinister people.
Even when he's doing, we've seen some really hammy raisings of Satan so far in our movie watching.
I thought this was the best one, though.
This is the best one so far. In fact, as I think IMDb trivia points out, his invocation to the devil has been sampled in multiple dark metal songs.
It's still over the top, but it's just the right amount of over the top. I feel like
fairly. I mean, he's believable without being crazy theatrical.
Yeah,
and he has to marry this with some of the cheesiest 1972 dialogue as well, which we'll get to. But anyway, so the band of hippies that we're talking about, which doesn't include the band keeps playing because, as you pointed out, they move on to their big hit, Alligator Man in an alligator world. The cops have been called, and they're like, "How long do you think we can stay till they kick us out?" And they're like,
"This fucking I can't believe how long this goes on for." About assuming the response time is this versus this.
This is one of the points I'm making about this movie, which is only an hour and a half. It doesn't overstay its welcome.
Oh Lord, no!
But it beleaguers some things, like this scene. I'm like, what's the point of the? I think they'll be here in 4.5 minutes. I think they'll be here in 8 minutes. No, it's a Friday night. Blah, 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 blah. I'm like, this doesn't serve any purpose.
No, I couldn't. This was insane. I mean, because this is where I'm doing, when are we going to get to Van Helsing?
17 minutes of this film, if you add it all together, 17 minutes of this film is people looking for the right plank to get through a wall. There's one swinging plank, and you see people knocking on various planks, multiple characters. How do I get through this fence? How do I get through the fence? There's the loose one. We do that with multiple characters.
That is a big problem with the movie. There's no question about it.
14 minutes.
Yeah.
I'm joking, of course, but it's way too many.
There's a lot of it. Is the point? You're hyperbolic for effect.
How about just showing a character walking through that swinging plank? They found it. We don't need to see them fight.
The audience will never buy that they just found it.
Jesus Christ. Anyway, so they're like, we better get out of here. And then Johnny Alucard's the last to leave. And the old people, this is a weird, stupid bit, but as you pointed out, it gets his character across. He lists one of their porcelain priceless things, and they go, "Oh, the hippie's gonna drop it." He goes, "I wouldn't do that." He flips it, he catches it. He's like, "No, it's all right." So he puts it back. He's like, "I may be a stinker, but I'm not that bad." And then as he leaves through the door, he sneaks his hand back in, tips it over so it does crash.
And then
on
he
the
goes,
floor.
"I am that bad."
Yeah,
Ooh.
man. Oh, damn it. Oof.
And
Take that, establishment.
And so where do they go next? Oh, to the most happening coffee house they can find.
And it's called the Cavern. Ooh.
Mm-hmm. And they order a round of coffee and Coke. They don't dabble with that booze. They don't smoke that weed. They're all about the caffeine, baby.
They talk about the weed. We don't see anyone smoke it.
No. Yeah, it's about, I guess, weed is about in this world.
Yes. Yeah, I'm sure drugs are happening, and they talk about, oh, I don't go there except for sometimes to get weed. And that's one of the characters that you would expect that from.
That I then give to other people because I'm just holding it for a friend.
Yeah, so this little round table of folks, they're like, oh, that was fun. What will we do next? And Johnny Alucard, oh, god damn it. Have they said his last name yet?
They have
I don't
not.
think of this.
They have not.
He's still Johnny.
Yeah.
He's like, you guys want to do something really off the chain?
This does remind me of Ralph Bates with those old rich guys going, you want to get wild tonight?
This is the same
shtick. Let's
he goes,
raise up Satan.
Let's summon the devil. And they're going, oh, you're joking. He's like, no, man, let's totally do it. And they go, you mean like a black mass? He's like, yes.
Yeah, baby, yeah.
Are you too chicken to do it? And they're like, no.
Mm-hmm.
And then one of them, who I don't remember which one, maybe the blonde one, goes, don't you need like a desecrated church for that? It just seems like something I'm like, why?
Don't you need a desecrated church? To which he's like, they're about to tear down this church down the road, so we've got it.
Yeah, and they're like, well, asked and answered. Yeah. So they're like, well, I guess we'll do it. And Jessica Van Helsing is the one that goes, I don't like the sound of this. And they're like, hey, isn't your family all into that occult bullshit?
Yeah, your grandpa's like an expert on occult materials. To which I'm like, yes, cut to her grandfather. Cut to her grandfather. I don't care about these kids. Get to the old guy.
Which I'm thinking she should have gone, yeah, he is. Which is why I would not do this.
Yeah,
because I have some knowledge of how terrible a thing this is.
People's belief in the occult in this movie is kind of wishy-washy. How much credit people are giving to Van Helsing.
It is interesting. Those cops are like, no, I'm totally down to believe vampirism. Let's go. I will say, the guy's
like, because the guy's like, I don't know, vampires. He's like, you saying you don't believe me? No, I'm not saying that. You know, it's like they're.
I'll need a little bit more.
Once again, it's a wishy-washy belief in the occult. It's like, I'm open to the idea. I'm not fully convinced, but I'm not saying no.
This really is early 70s, which is why these Hammer films have taken such a turn towards the devil.
Yeah.
Is that it really
was. The devil was hot right now, man. He was
It was. Yeah. And it is almost believable that a random hippie person at a party would say, don't you need the desecrated church for that? Because the people reading about this stuff, it was very hip.
My favorite Johnny Alucard line here, too, is he says, we could have a bacchanal with Beelzebub.
Yeah.
I love it.
And he also says, we'll do it on Friday because it's the Feast of Belphegor.
Yeah. Let's just toss some demon words around, man.
Yeah, he's like, so it'll be perfect. And they're like, all right, let's do it.
Because I will say at this point, Johnny Alucard, who I don't think we've heard his name yet. I don't think that's till later. I think it's later when they actually do the satanic rites ceremony that they say it.
I can't remember at which point in this film that my eyes rolled so much that I temporarily went blind.
I have it written. It is later in the movie.
Yes. Okay. That would explain.
Because but here you just think like he's that weird dark friend you have, who's just a little too into this shit.
Yeah. But he's also recognizable to us, the audience, as the guy who knows all about Dracula.
Oh, yeah. No, that's the thing. But you can see them writing off as like, oh, yeah, that guy's like, he's the goth friend.
The friends, he's like, well, he's into that shit.
Yeah, you know,
all I know is we'll probably all fuck. We'll probably just have an orgy.
Well, because that's the thing where they're talking about, like, we'll go there, we'll crack a few beers. Once again, we never actually see anybody drink, though.
Which, we'll get to that scene, but I'm like, what is the... Anyway, yes, they're all game for it because they don't think it's going to be anything. He knows better.
But anyway, we follow Johnny home, and we see him open up a little box where he's got some of the ashes of Dracula and a Dracula ring, and he's like,
all I'm saying is,
having
seen your apartment, John, or at least your old apartment, he's basically got, like, here's my glass case of cool Draculania.
Yeah.
Because right above it, he's got a very stylish woodcut or print of Christopher Lee's Dracula. Mouth open, fangs bared, and you're like, what is that?
I will say,
supposed to be a historical woodcut of Dracula?
Later, when we see those portraits in Peter Cushing's place, I thought, where can I get those?
I know you did.
Legitimately, I'm like, I need these portraits of Van Helsing and Dracula.
No, the thing that cracks me up is that Dracula that I'm talking about, that Johnny Alucard has, that print, Van Helsing has the same one.
Yeah.
So in the world of this movie, I'm assuming that somehow, historically, that is known as the woodcut of Count Dracula that everyone knows. And if you're an occultist, you probably have on your wall.
And that's my thought where I'm like, my walls seem bare without it. I need this in my apartment. I need both that and the Van Helsing one.
I would love the Van Helsing portrait.
Yeah.
That's actually better.
It is better, but I want the set.
It's like an oil painting.
Yeah.
You want the set.
Yeah.
So yes, below that, he does indeed have this, like, here's my glass case, and in the box,
he's got screen used props, basically, right? Like,
he does indeed. He is ready to go with, like, I've got all the
I've got the Eye of Agamotto over here on my wall. So
braggart.
Yeah.
Be very careful with that because it contains the time stone.
I am very careful with it.
Okay, good.
I've never let Thanos into this apartment. So
Dormammu, I've come to bargain.
I do bargain with Dormammu periodically, though.
Is that a euphemism for masturbation?
It could be.
Dude, last night I totally bargained with Dormammu, if you know what I mean.
Dude, too much information. Come on.
Dormammu, I've come to bargain.
That's for when I'm doing foreplay with myself.
Hashtag bargaining with Dormammu. Anyway, so yeah, he's got Dracula's signet ring, which that thing gets handed around in these movies.
It really does.
Love a production of that. I would
love that as well, man. I would absolutely love that. But so then we cut to Jessica comes home and she's going through the books on her grandfather's shelf, which are all about occult stuff and black magic. And she just sits down with one and cracks it open, which is when we first see Van Helsing come home. What is this guy's name? What Van Helsing is he?
What is his first name? Isn't it also? Lorimer.
Lorimer Van Helsing. And this guy's name could be anything because he's a descendant of Van Helsing. So
they mostly just call him Professor.
Yeah.
Professor or Granddad.
I only call him Van Helsing in my notes, so because I'm just like, he's Van Helsing. That's all that matters.
It's okay.
And this is a family business, man.
They present the period well because he's much more comfortable than his ancestor. He's got like this very nice, comfortable looking cardigan sweater, and
this is a suave looking Cushing in this movie.
But also homey. It's a good mix. He looks very comfortable. And do you notice how much he smokes in this movie?
A lot.
I know. He's like constantly got a cigarette.
When he busted out a cigarette the first time, I was like, that's odd. Okay.
He smokes all through this thing.
Do you mind if I smoke?
He's very doting on his granddaughter, but he is upset to see that she's reading a book on black masses.
He's like, fuck around with that shit.
He's like, that is serious business, yo. And she's like, oh, don't worry, Granddad. My friends are idiots, and don't worry about it.
And he says, yes, and now that you bring it up, I've never met these friends of yours. How about you bring them by?
And she says, "This isn't their scene, man."
Yeah. And he says,
I
I'm
mean,
worried about
essentially
what you're
she says
doing.
that.
And she says, don't worry. I don't do the hard stuff, all right? Every once in a while, I take a sip of beer, but that's it. I'm a good girl.
It is hilarious how this movie is going out of its way to present her as like she is in the in crowd, but she doesn't do the naughty stuff. She
Mm-hmm.
does say, "Don't worry about me. I don't do
Yeah.
drugs. I don't do LSD or pot." She goes, "At most I'll have a half of a pint of beer, and I haven't slept with anyone
Yeah.
yet."
Yeah. But that Bob
And
is
he's
looking
like,
pretty
"Thank
good.
God."
Yeah.
And he goes, "Well, I'll be up later to check." I think he's probably checking her
instead
gynecologically.
let me get my tools.
Good, you're still intact. Ooh, creepy!
Address your emails to Brendan Jones.
I'm sorry, man. What was the famous some celebrity or sports star basically said that he, like, in his daughter's teenage years, he had her doctors check her in.
It was somebody. I don't remember who it was though, but I do
It
remember.
was fairly recent, which is why that popped in my brain.
Creepy
Because
as fuck. Yeah.
someone in this day and age
Might
has
have done
actually
that.
paid his daughter's gynecologist to say, "Hey,
Yeah.
man, she had it or not?"
Yeah.
Ooh.
She
All
had
right,
the
moving
D. Come on. You can tell
She
me.
had the D.
Come on.
Do you think she's bargaining with Dormammu?
Well, she's definitely doing that.
That's the D.
Yeah.
That's the D.
Uh,
She needs some Dormammu, and she needs it bad.
But I like this moment when he goes over to his bookcase and he just pulls out the book on Dracula, almost like Van Helsing Dracula senses tingling.
It is exactly that,
Yeah.
and it made me snicker because, for one thing, that book is right next to the one that he's putting back. So the Black Masses book is right next to his grandfather's book, and so that's convenient. But yeah, he pulls it out just so we see that it's a history of Dracula the vampire, by Lawrence Van Helsing, his granddad. And then he grips his forehead like he's getting a headache. Like, yes, vampire senses.
Yeah. There's a vampire coming. I know it. I can feel it.
Man, my corns have been there's a vampire around.
Yeah, it's like older people feeling the weather in their bones. It's like him just going, vampire inbound.
Vampire are coming.
Yeah.
So
now we go to the church for the demonic ceremony or whatever.
This thing, the whole scene, crazy, man.
And they're going, would you look at this? It's your great great grandfather's grave.
Oh, right. Bob and Jessica, before they go in, they of course take 5 minutes to find the flappy piece of wood on the fence.
It's a complex entry, man. It's not obvious where you go.
They sneak in, and so before they even go inside, they happen to see that one of the gravestones is her grandfather's. I don't know why she wouldn't have known.
Yeah.
No, her great grandfather's.
Right.
Sorry. But still, why wouldn't she have known that there's a very prominent relative's grave there? But she sees it and she goes, "This is a bad joke."
Yeah.
The fact that this is where they chose, and this is where my great grandfather
and he died 100 years to this date.
Hey, yeah, somehow, wow, this is really nice. 100 years since he died, and it's also the Feast of Belphegor. What?
And also, this is where Bob goes, "Oh, that Johnny Alucard."
Oh, God.
This is where it is.
Yeah, and again, rolled my eyes so hard that I'm looking at my brain.
Was it necessary to make him Johnny Alucard? Does it matter?
All I know is I've mentioned before Kim Newman's series of Anno Dracula novels, which are delightful and fun.
Really good stuff.
Really good stuff. And the last one that wasn't a collection of interconnected short stories, the last one was a full novel, was in fact titled Johnny Alucard.
Yes.
Yes,
it was.
It's not a full tie-in, but it's a wink enough that made me love it all the more. Anyway, yes. So Jessica's upset by all this, and then she goes, "This is really in bad taste." And then crazy
she gets frightened
monk
by that crazy monk guy in a skull mask. Woo-hoo!
and he's doing a joke.
And this is where I 100% was like, this is straight out of a Friday the 13th movie.
Yes.
There's a jump scare with the prankster fake out. Like, man.
He's wearing a rubber skull mask, and he's like, oh,
but then he's like really sorry. He's like, well, I didn't know. Jesus,
I'm sorry, I didn't know that was Johnny's idea. We should get inside. Okay, so once they do go inside, that's where I love this part. The entire little gaggle of hippies, they're like, you guys are late. Isn't this awesome? Look, Johnny brought us all shrouds. They're sitting in a circle on the ground in these black shrouds, and they're like going, you missed out on the shrouds. Because Jessica
we were handing out shrouds,
on,
man, but we're done with them now. He ran out, man.
You ran out. You're shit out of luck.
But anyway, so he makes them sit around a pentagram, of course.
Yep.
And he starts up some real groovy music.
Dig
that jam, baby.
Got recognized, I think, in one of the trivia bits because apparently it was from an experimental electronic music band, which, of course, in 1972, that's early days of experimental electrical music. It's not an amazing piece. It's
well
just
before the Alan Parsons Project, man.
Yeah, exactly. Or Pink Floyd, Pink Floyd-y.
Yeah.
But so they start the tape player, and then Johnny's going into the trance. Now, here's the thing. This cracked me up. In any kind of counterculture, whatever, hippie movie, and you got these people about to do some sort of, occult seance-y thing, this is amazingly how fast they all go into this because they have not taken drugs.
Nope.
Literally, Jessica and Bob sit down, and he says, get in the circle, tighten the circle up, and I'm about to start the chant. And then he says, oh, I got to say the line. He says, oh, where is it? I wrote it down. He says, Johnny Alucard, where is it?
Oh man, I didn't write this down, whatever it is.
He says, close the devil's circle. Like he's getting them together.
Yeah.
And then he goes, dig the music, kids.
Yes, he does. I knew it was something like that, and it's incredibly stupid.
That blew my mind, and I laughed so hard because it is the combination of, I'm deadly serious, we're about to start this, so get together, we're about to call it the devil, and then he goes, dig the music, kids, and they start swaying as if they're being entranced, which makes no sense. It happens within 2 minutes that these non-drugged up teenagers are like, and they're swaying back and forth.
How diggable that music is, man.
It's way too diggable. And so they are listening to it, and it's trippy. Woo! And he starts calling up all kinds of demons.
Well, because he's calling up, all the demons, and then eventually the one that matters is he says, Count Dracula! And that's when Jessica's like, whoa, what was that name?
Like, I know.
Like Jessica's look on her face like, that's not
the
good.
Fact that literally calling upon all the princes of hell.
Yeah.
All of the archdemons. These are the real names as far as I know them. And I'm like going, that's serious black mass stuff. They're like, no big deal. We're still swaying to the music. Mm-hmm. But the one that makes her stop is like, wait, Count Dracula?
You mean the one my family famously defeated decades ago?
It's like, okay, you wouldn't be concerned about the devil himself showing up, but that vampire.
No, because the devil may not exist, but we know Dracula does.
That's true. We know, because we saw the beginning of the film.
Yeah, exactly.
These poor characters have not.
So then he goes, Jessica, won't you come up here and drink the blood of whatever it is?
Because you have been chosen for the blood baptism.
The blood baptism, that was it.
Yeah, so come on up.
And she's like, I'm not cool with blood or baptism.
No, I was good with the swaying. In fact, I was enjoying it, but not so much. In fact, she did at one point lean over and start macking on Bob while they were swaying to the music.
Yeah, because they're kind of here for the orgy. Let's be honest. We talked about this.
They are.
Yeah.
And in fact, Monk Dude, when he's swaying, is clearly looking at Carolyn Monroe's boobs, which I thought was also pretty funny. This is a nudity-less Hammer.
I was shocked. Especially here, I was waiting for the part where he just tears Caroline Monroe's outfit open during this blood baptism.
I think it's all the censors and Warner Brothers probably going, hey, can you tone that part down?
I mean, they go pretty far with Caroline Monroe here. They take it as far.
Beecham is in some very tight braless, things where you're like, well, hello, but still
he's about to pour blood all over Caroline Monroe's chest.
Yeah. Well, this is what happens. Jessica says, "No, I'm not good with this blood baptism." And Laura, Caroline Monroe, jumps up and goes, "Me, take me.
I'm all about blood baptisms.
I'm all about that shit." And wind is kicked up now. Wind is blowing.
Oh, it always is, man. Wind's always about to kick up in these movies.
I know. That's how you know the devil's there.
Mm-hmm.
And you didn't see the tape. You didn't see the tape on the reel-to-reel run out, but the music keeps playing.
That's devil shit, man. That's the devil's doing.
Devil shit. So she goes up on the altar, and you could see that Johnny Alucard's like, that's not how it was supposed to. Okay,
well, I guess whatever gets us to Dracula. That's my attitude as an audience member too. Is whatever gets us to Dracula is Dracula.
It's very true. I'm sitting there doing that too. So she stretches out, and she is all game. Mm-hmm. He picks up the chalice. He dumps the ashes of Dracula from the vial into the thing.
The
chalice. And he cuts him damn self.
He cuts his wrist open, and so much blood pours out. I thought he's sacrificing himself to Dracula.
It did look like that's way too much.
So much blood. I mean, it pours into the chalice, then overflows out of the chalice over.
It's a similar thing that they've done in these Hammer films, where it's like, dude, is there also some baking soda in the ashes of Dracula? Because it does like a lot more than goes in starts to come up. Like blah, 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 blah.
Yeah. But I just thought that's too much blood coming out of him. He's gonna die.
You usually see these people when they're doing this kind of like blood thing. They cut their palms.
Yeah. He slices his wrist open. And I thought, I thought that was kind of cool. I thought that he was gonna die.
Sure.
Here. No, we got to keep this guy around for the movie.
You need Johnny Alucard. You just don't know it yet. So the chalice is full of blood, and now he just douses her with it.
Yeah. And then she starts screaming because she's had blood poured all over. Although I don't know what she thought blood baptism was going to be, except this.
This was one of those parts where the movie's like, we need this to happen. We just don't want to logically explain it. Everyone starts freaking out at this moment, which makes no sense. Mm-hmm. Because, again, blood baptism, understood.
Yeah.
And then he pours blood on her. She freaks out. And then the other hippies get up and go, we're out of here. That's fucking scary.
They all run out of there because they can't see Dracula come back.
Is on the altar as if she can't get up. She's like, don't leave me here. Don't leave. I'm like, can you not just get
Jessica's
up and
the only one who goes, maybe we shouldn't leave her here. And Bob's like, she'll be fine. Let's go.
Like, she knows which bus to take. Let's get the fuck out of here.
And then, of course, the whole time that they've been doing this blood baptism, we've seen the ground where Dracula's ashes were buried undulating.
Yes.
Until eventually.
Yeah, by the way, the stake was still in the ground.
Mm-hmm.
I think that after 100 years, someone might have kicked over that thing, or
nope.
It's like, you know what?
Undisturbed.
Apparently undisturbed and still painted because it was part of the cartwheel for 100 years.
Yes. It has not aged a day.
Not a day.
And of course, Johnny goes out there, and in a cloud of smoke appears Count Dracula himself.
And, shot cheesy, not particularly impressively, but the man shows up.
It's Christopher Lee in a cape, man. I'm in. And Johnny goes, I have done it, master. I have summoned you. And Dracula shuts this shit down with, it was my will. And I was like, oh.
That is the way you bring in Dracula, is he says, this was my fucking plan all along, you idiot.
Yeah.
And by the way,
taking credit.
Don't try to amaze me with cars and record players, okay?
No interest, man.
I'm already on top of this shit. I'm not
gonna hang out here for the rest of the movie. I'll be cool here.
Don't worry, I don't need to go see Love Story playing in a theater now.
I already know love means never having to say you're sorry. It's why I don't fall in love. I love saying I'm sorry.
I watched The Graduate from beyond the realm of death. I like Simon and Garfunkel. Who doesn't?
So here's to you, Mrs. Robinson.
Oh my God, Dr. Strangelove, a classic. So yeah, he goes
into the church and munches down on Laura.
He munches down on her, and she's like, no. Then he bites her. Then she's like, I enjoyed that.
This is also one of my favorite moments, though, is after he drinks from her, Lee pulls back, with the blood all over his mouth, but he just gives this look of like, that's good stuff. Like, that's what I needed.
Oh, yeah. Thanks.
Yeah.
Daddy say thank you.
Yeah.
And
that's a good year.
His eyes are red because he fed.
Yeah.
But this was, they don't do this often because he does the first bite, and this was a classic Lee. He goes in like he's about to kiss her.
Yeah.
And then veers and bites her neck. That's good.
That's good.
Then he rears back and goes, oh. But this they don't often do. Then he goes, I'm going back for a second.
Yeah.
Usually once he bites, it's like they do the orgasm face and then they fade.
No, he's like, not enough.
Yeah, he only got a little bit this first time.
I got to get back in there.
You know what? I'm going to empty this motherfucker.
Yeah. Boy, I was going to save some for later, but you know what? I'm just too thirsty.
So you Carolyn Monroe fans, you can go ahead and turn the film off.
Yeah.
She's done. She's done. Well, kind of.
I was only here for Carolyn Monroe.
we see her dead body in a few minutes.
We do. Then I love this. We cut to Bob in his car with Jessica outside of the Van Helsing place, and she's really upset. And Bob's is like, hey, Johnny took things a little too far, okay?
The way
he gets. I'll talk to him, though, and tell him that wasn't cool. Now, are you going to be okay? So then we cut to the rest of everybody at the cavern. And they're like, oh, wow, that sure was crazy tonight. Hey, where are Laura and Johnny?
Isn't it supposed to be like the next
Sorry, it's the next day. That's what it is. They've met up and they're like...
Or next day, yeah.
Yeah, whatever it is, yeah.
And they're like, where's Laura? Where's Johnny? And then Johnny shows up and they go, where were you? He goes, I was just dropping Laura off at the train station.
And they're like the what? Train station? They're like, you know how she occasionally goes to that other place from time to time. They're like, oh.
He plays this pretty well and reminds me of a lot of the dumb mistakes that serial killers do, because I do listen to a lot of true crime podcasts, but it's one of the things where it's like, oh yeah, didn't I tell you she was going to go see her aunt?
Yeah.
But the thing is, he goes,
in fact, here's a letter explaining that she, yeah.
Yes. And he goes, yeah, I dropped her off. She went to Ram's Head or whatever to see her aunt. And they go, isn't she from a Watney or something? Like,
she's from Ram's Head.
It's like, Ram's Head, you know that she goes there every month. Shut up.
Yeah. No more questions.
And they go, oh, they're like, okay.
No more questions.
and then they go, but last night was crazy, man. And that was freaky shit with all that blood. That was too much.
Oh, it wasn't blood.
He goes, did you believe it?
Yeah.
Did you guys actually fall for my stage trickery?
To be fair, this is a first in one of these movies, which is somebody playing off. That wasn't a demonic summoning. It was all for show. And he pulls out, he goes, it's what they use in the movies, baby. It's a blood capsule, and he puts it in the thing of water and shakes it up, and it turns to blood.
And the way you said that, by the way, we need to make sure, because we're not doing verbatim, because that would be crazy, but you folks at home need to know this movie is rife with awesome 1972-isms.
It really is.
There's lots of that isn't cool, man.
Yeah.
And, if that's not jarring enough to hear in a Hammer Dracula film, I don't know what is. But they're talking about, that's not my scene.
Yeah.
These are not the vibes. Earlier.
Dig that music we heard earlier.
Yes. And she, Jessica said to her grandfather, Van Helsing, she goes, yeah, things got kind of kinky. And he goes, what? And she goes, weird, like out of sight.
Yeah.
That kind of, and he's like, oh, okay. Yes, kinky.
I don't love old man Cushing being like, well, I don't understand these kids today. I don't need particularly.
Kids today with their jazz cigarettes and their rumble seats. Their raccoon coats, their banana oil.
because it's 1950.
I was going way back. I was going back to 1929, practically.
I guess that is true. Yeah, Rumbles
with their hot cha cha and their 23 skidoo
out there doing the Charleston.
Jesus. But anywho, this is funny.
Yeah, so that he does that, and he says they're like, "But we heard those sounds like sound effects tapes, man. You push play yourself."
Yeah, you push the tape, dude.
Meanwhile, so while this is happening, we see some kids playing around the old church, and
first we see them take 14 minutes to try to find that one plank that gets them into the churchyard. And they do find it. And then they're in the churchyard. And then they find the lovely Caroline Munro.
Buried under some rubble.
She's not as lovely in this because she looks dead.
Yeah, it's unfortunate that she is dead, but I do like these cool kids who have no reaction. They're just staring at her.
I know. They do this thing where they find her, and then it's a shot from the corpse POV up at them, and the kids are looking down, and they just kind of like blink. They're not like going, dead body. They just go, huh.
Well, all right. Maybe better call the police, because the next thing we see is the fuzz is rolled up. A pair of detectives have showed up and gone, "Hey, we're having nothing to see here."
They do not say what's all this then, which was a missed opportunity.
They don't. Who is this? Is this Greg, our inspector? Michael Kitchen?
I don't think he's... Greg?
Well, which one's Greg then?
I guess maybe he's the inspector.
Shit. I know this guy. This is Foyle. Inspector Foyle from Foyle's War of the BBC.
Yes, but also Tanner in 2 James Bond films.
007 Corner. Ba-da-ba-ba-da. Yes, in GoldenEye and World Is Not Enough, he plays Tanner.
Mm-hmm.
That's right. But also, I love me some Foyle's War.
This isn't him. Okay, I don't know who Greg is. Michael Coles, Inspector Murray.
Inspector. I was looking for an inspector, because then there's just Detective Sergeant.
Yeah, Detective Sergeant
Inspector
is the guy
Murray is up top. Yeah, he's up higher. I see.
Yeah, they become... I'm not sure who Greg is. In the movie?
This guy is also with Peter Cushing in Doctor Who and the Daleks. The guy who plays the inspector.
Hold on. Greg is Monk Dude.
Oh my God, that's Inspector Foyle? I didn't know.
Inspector Foyle is Monk Dude.
I love it, man. I love me some Foyle's War. So,
okay. So you're forgiving him for being a really insufferable character in this film.
I am, because if you've seen Foyle's War, it's awesome.
I do know of Foyle's War. It's very famous, but I've never watched it.
Yeah, it's cool. He's a homicide detective in London during World War II. So there's a war going on, but this guy's still solving murders.
It sounds awesome. It's just no Z cars, okay?
I will agree.
Still waiting on my complete box set, which you would not believe the shipping on that thing, because it weighs apparently 50 pounds. The complete series box set of Z cars.
Foyle's War is much easier to get through. There's only 28 episodes, so...
All right, maybe someday I'll watch Foyle's War. Just get off my back.
Yes, get on it, man.
I'm tired of John writing me about things I haven't seen.
I spend an insane amount of time watching BBC detective dramas, all right?
There are so many good ones.
There are so many good ones, and that's just that's a cozy night in for me. Pop on a Foyle's War. I finally did
all of Broadchurch, and it was amazing.
Broadchurch is one of the best. I love Broadchurch. I
can't even get started.
Love me some Luther, some Wallander.
Luther's great. Wallander I haven't watched, even though I love me some
Branagh. And now I'm happy because now I have Young Wallander on Netflix. So
is that like Young Sheldon? Is he does he have like OCD kind of. Or
it's a little like Young Sheldon if he solved more murders.
There should be a crossover. I'm going to throw in one little totally, because we're already sidetracked. We'll get back to Drac. Yeah. Don't worry. But remember I talked about the surprising success of Count Yorga.
Yes.
And it had a sequel. and that was AIP.
Mm-hmm.
AIP also famously, and in fact, the reason they existed ever was to give us the abominable Dr. Phibes.
Oh, the best.
Dr. Phibes Rises Again, or Phibes Rises Again, the sequel, is not as good.
No.
But who does he go up against in that movie? Robert Quarry, who played Count Yorga. You know who he was supposed to go up against fictionally? Robert Quarry was supposed to be playing Count Yorga. It was supposed to be Phibes versus Yorga.
That would have been cool. That would have been really cool.
That would have been. He is an immortal. He's someone who's had a prolonged life. He's
vampire adjacent in that movie.
Yeah, they decided to let's not explicitly make this Yorga, even though they did own the rights. They could have easily. It reminds me of like when Full Moon Pictures or who it was did their like Demonic Toys meets. Like they would cross over their own stupid Puppet Master and the Demonic Toys versus, like, oh, stop it, you guys. But no one's waited for that.
You and I are always looking for shared universe stuff, so that would have been cool if it was Dr. Phibes versus Count Yorga, man. Ugh.
Rewrite it. And it'll be Yorga.
We will at some point do a just Vincent Price miniseries on this show. We'll just go through the Price movies because I just got one of the new box sets of Vincent Price movies, so I'm very excited.
And it's frightening.
It's so wonderful. The Tales of the Macabre.
I love that man. He is similar to Cushing in the fact he's always better than the material, and he always raises it.
Yeah.
Is he kind of winking? Yes, but that campiness.
He's a little bit campier than Cushing.
He's very much. But he's
not to the point of ruining this,
He doesn't ruin them. He makes them better by being
injecting some energy in there.
Life. He gives them life.
Yes.
Oh man, I just want to see him crush a human fly hybrid with a rock.
Always. That's a box set I want to get. Shout put out a box set of all the Fly movies.
Nice.
Including all the old ones and the Cronenberg and Fly 2. So it really is every Fly movie ever made, which I'm.
That is very complete.
Yeah,
and there are 2 worth watching.
Yes, indeed.
One's called The Fly, and one's called The Fly.
Yes, that is really all you need. That's why I have not pulled the trigger on the prices they currently want for that.
I'm waiting for the box set of Incredible Shrinking Man and Incredible Shrinking Woman with Lily Tomlin.
Absolutely. All right, so back to Dracula. The detectives are now looking into this killing, and they're examining the scene going, hey, I wonder if this is one of those cult murders we keep reading about in the States.
This disturbed me a lot simply because it took me out. Here's the thing. Obviously, they're being timely. They're trying to. But, this is a veiled reference to the Manson murders. And they say, well, those people weren't cut up as much as this one was. What we see is Carol Monroe under a bunch of debris. And sadly, anyone who had even passively read anything about the Manson family murders knows horrible things were done to real people, and much more severe than this woman has had her throat slashed and she's been buried under some rubble. So them trying to be timely and trying to say this is worse than that made me a little that's a little gross. Because they don't say Manson ever, but they go, like those cult murders in America. This is 1972. This movie comes out. 69 is the Manson family murders. And that's what they're talking about, because cult murders weren't really a huge thing in America. There was just one big one, and it was terrible.
There's always this fear of satanic cult murders and stuff, but there really haven't ever been any.
I do recommend you watch the new Netflix documentary series on the Son of Sam murders.
I have not watched that. Yeah,
because there's a lot of convincing evidence that it was multiple people. They were involved in a satanic cult, and Berkowitz was one of them, but not the sole killer. So anyway, these things have happened, but you're right that it's always been something that, in general, the public. Especially, actually, much more in the 80s, Satanic Panic
was huge.
That's when that
Yeah.
That was huge.
Yeah.
And backwards masking and all that nonsense
Yeah.
was such a concern that every TV show was like going, what you can do to spot the signs of satanic worship in your child.
Yes, everybody was afraid. And so
Are they playing Dungeons and Dragons?
Yeah. They pretty quickly ID Carolyn Monroe, and then for some reason they have a list of known associates.
They recognized her from Bond films and her print ad work. They knew it was Carolyn Monroe.
But then they're like, and the known associates are these people.
Yeah, that's weird.
And they go through all the friends, and then they hit on Jessica Van Helsing. They're like, Van Helsing? Hasn't he helped us before in the past with other murders? To which this gave me a pilot I'm going to write now, which is Van Helsing, occult consultant. Come on. Yes. I mean, how is that not on CBS right now?
Well, they've done, there was a Van Helsing series fairly recently, right?
Yeah, but that was about like a post-apocalyptic world where vampires have taken over and stuff like that. I'm talking about doing like the X-Files with Van Helsing, where he is consulting with the police on
I love it.
Criminal supernatural matters.
I love it.
Yeah. I am obsessed with ideas since I watched this movie.
In the 1970s Tomb of Dracula comic, which is still one of the best.
Great stuff.
Even when it gets a little superhero-y hokey, but you had Quincy Harker, the son of
I thought you were talking about Quincy M.E. for a second, but that's okay.
Quincy Harker, son of Jonathan Mina, in a wheelchair. He's an old man. The wheelchair shoots stakes out of it, wooden stakes. That's badass.
I love that, man.
And she has as his young assistant, and she's driven. Is it Rachel Van Helsing, I believe? And she's like the great granddaughter of the actual Van Helsing, who of course knew his parents.
Think there's any scenario that Marvel would let me develop that as a Disney Plus series?
I don't know why Marvel doesn't do more with the fact that
I would kill to show run Tomb of Dracula as a series.
And don't even. And
they're doing
surprised.
Blade, so I'm saying that can lead to Blade is in movie theaters. Tomb of Dracula is on Disney Plus. Maybe Blade makes the occasional appearance.
Yes, well, I mean, Blade started in Tomb of Dracula,
what I mean.
and you got Castlevania on Netflix has gotten people re-excited about that kind of stuff. I'm like, dudes, not that Marvel owns comics rights to Dracula. It's just that they've done more with.
I mean, Dracula's public domain. But their characters they would own the rights to, certainly.
And they except for Quincy Harker is also public domain because he is mentioned in the novel as an infant.
Yeah, so, I have a feeling they'd still come after me if I gave him a stake shooting wheelchair. Yeah.
No, it should be a Disney. I mean, a Disney Plus. It should be a Marvel.
I'd fucking put
TV
Elsa
show.
Bloodstone in there while you're at it too.
Bloodstone. Yeah. Either Ulysses the original or his not offspring or granddaughter or whatever.
I think it's granddaughter.
And what's her name?
Wasn't it Elsa?
Something?
Isn't it Elsa Bloodstone? Yeah, Elsa Bloodstone. I love Elsa Bloodstone. And
she's great.
She's awesome,
she's
man.
ass-kicking monster hunter. And
I love the monster hunting aspect of the Marvel Universe, and we're once again off topic.
I love the supernatural world that Marvel doesn't do enough with.
They really don't.
And that includes people like Werewolf by Night.
Which they did. They are doing a new Werewolf by Night book, which I am happy about.
And Morbius, the living vampire. And
they're definitely doing more Morbius because that movie's coming out.
Yeah. Okay, Columbo. I see you.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. So back to Drac. So that is funny. The cops, the way they find this out, I mean, they identify the body. And they go, we have a record sheet for her because she was arrested once for possession of marijuana.
Yeah.
Which is
She learned her lesson, though. She learned her lesson and said, no more marijuana.
Never again.
No.
I'll just do blood baptisms with my weird friends. So that's how they have the list of her known associates, which includes Jessica Van Helsing. And the cops go, yeah, didn't old man Van Helsing help us with a couple of crimes? And you're right. That is something that the BBC should have launched as a series. They didn't.
Oh, but I'm saying they still can because I may have a script for them in like a couple days because I'm so jazzed about this idea. Okay. And I may have already figured out the outline for what that looks like. Yeah. So let's see. So then we cut to Johnny is driving I guess her name is Gaynor because I have nothing else to call her.
Yeah, she has a first name. I just can't remember what it was.
They come to he pulls up next to his place, and he says, "Oh, isn't this clever? Won't you come in for a bite?"
That just means they're having dinner. I don't know what you.
Oh.
What are you getting at? What are you? I don't.
Oh, Brendan, you're always too surface level, Brendan.
Isn't that what you say to people when you're like, "Would you like to have some food?"
Come in for a bite.
Yeah, again, you lost me.
All right.
I was confused by the fact that they appear to not eat dinner when they go in.
I know, that was very odd. So she's like, okay, I guess I can come in. So they go inside, and then we're cross-cutting here because we cut to the police showing up at Van Helsing's saying, we'd like your help because we have a potential satanic killer here.
Okay, before we get to that scene, you brought that up. Come in for a bite. Earlier, they asked when they were asking where Laura was, or if Laura, when she got on the train or whatever, Johnny Alucard said, "Oh, she's drained."
Yes, he did.
That is the level of this film.
Yeah. Oh, and speaking of that, the police say, yes, we found a body completely drained of blood. To which, of course, Van Helsing's like, drained of blood, you say?
Yeah, at first, when they go, we think it might have been a satanic cult, he goes, yeah, well, I mean, why are you coming to me? That's just, whatever. And then they're like, on drained of blood. He goes, oh, yes? Drained of blood, you say?
And then he says, I'll tell you what I think it is. And they're like, what is it? It's a vampire.
Yeah, because totally.
And this is the whole thing about like, well, I'm not saying that that's not the case, but I'm not fully convinced either.
Yeah, our inspector guy is actually very open-minded in this film. He goes, well, yeah, I'm not saying, because Peter Cushing as Van Helsing goes, you probably think I'm insane. And the inspector goes, no, I mean, I don't know, maybe. I'm not saying that.
It could be. I mean, it's possible.
And Van Helsing goes on to say, and I have a feeling I know exactly what vampire it is because, and he points at like the oil painting, goes, because my grandfather faced him before and died killing him.
Yeah.
And before he died, he had made it his life's work. And he had, this is what I love, he had proof, scientific proof of the existence of vampires, which, this is what I love, is never touched on. He does not elaborate. And I'm very curious as to what scientific proof Lawrence Van Helsing had back in the 1800s. So, no, but he's basically saying, damn it, vampires exist. And the inspectors essentially goes, maybe.
I suppose.
Yeah, could be.
And then he says, well, you're not the only person we want to talk to. Is your granddaughter home? He's like, what? What do you want with her?
What does Jessica have to do with it?
And he said, well, she's linked loosely to this happening. He's like, she is? Dear Lord.
She's an associate of the corpse.
Yeah. And so then, luckily, this is exactly when Jessica enters the house as they're having this conversation. And she gives some real vague answers going, I don't know, I was out with friends the other night, and I don't know, I kind of remember Laura, to which I'm like, why is she being coy about this?
It's weird because she does kind of lose it when she finds out that Laura is dead.
Mm-hmm.
But then it's sort of like, I don't really know anything.
Yeah. I don't know. And so then they go, all right.
I immediately would have thrown Johnny Alucard under the...
Yeah.
I mean, it would have been like, Johnny Alucard, he did it.
Right. And so the cops go, well, I guess we'll just have to question everybody else then.
Yep. Don't they mention the names because isn't this how Van Helsing learns there's a person called Johnny Alucard?
Yes. And he says, what do you know about this Johnny Alucard? And she's like, I don't know, I have to go to bed. But luckily that gives Van Helsing time. It's puzzle time for Van Helsing. And oh my God, it's the bit we've been doing. He's written out Alucard. And then he's drawn lines as he's rearranged each letter.
Okay. All right, okay.
Alucard.
Peter Cushing can make anything work because he's a genius.
Yeah.
But, holy fuck, this is stupid. This is like in Lust for Vampire where the guy just had the pages of sketchbook filled with fangs and bullshit and had written Alucard and Dracula. come on, you don't need to trace letters. You don't need to go this one to this one, because it's
My God.
It's not mixed together. It's just Dracula backwards.
Yeah.
It's just the same
Also,
word.
this confirms nothing because he already thinks it is Dracula.
That's true. He doesn't even need to really do this.
He goes, I know what this is.
Oh, crap. Dracula's involved?
He knows it's 100 years to the day. It must be Dracula. We didn't need any of this. This is just incredibly stupid. I did laugh pretty hard at this.
I did too.
Alucard. And the idea that he doesn't, the idea that Van Helsing isn't smart enough to go Alucard, that's Dracula backwards right away. Instead, the idea that I has to be like, wait a minute, oh, and it's not until he puts in the final D at the front of Dracula, he's like, oh my God.
Why would you need to draw those lines between it's the same word backwards?
Alucard.
That and Dig the Music, Baby are just, those are the things. I was laughing.
Yeah. Meanwhile, Jessica tosses and turns in bed, and we keep cutting to Dracula. So I'm like, is she dreaming about Dracula? Well, no. It's actually that we see Johnny has brought Gaynor. That's all I have to call her. I'm sorry.
She is
Dracula.
Marsha Hunt is the actress, I believe.
Yeah.
She's the very attractive black hippie of their group. Mm-hmm. And she comes to his house.
This poor
and she's
actress has nothing to do in this movie.
She has nothing to do, but she's still, she plays her part very well, and she's hot. Oh, sure. But she's like, where is everybody? Is no one else joining us? And he's like, it's just you and me, baby. He's putting the moves on her. Mm-hmm. But then he takes her to the church.
Yeah.
Did I don't.
We don't see the trip to the church. We're just suddenly at the church, and I guess she's fine with that.
But for half an hour, we do see him trying to find that one plank that swings.
I know it's here somewhere. Damn it!
But anyway,
where it is.
He has taken her to the church, confusingly, and seems to be like he's seducing her. But really, very quickly, Dracula's just standing there, and she starts to freak out. She's clutching his leg, like she's.
And then Dracula's pissed because he goes, "You fool! This is not the girl I told you to bring me."
And he's like, look, man, I'm doing the best I can.
So he hypnotizes her and bites her because he's like, well, I guess I'll have a snack while I'm at it.
Yeah.
I'm so mad I could eat this woman anyway. So so he does that. We then cut to Jess screaming because I guess she's somehow aware of this happening.
Yeah, somehow
I don't know. That doesn't really come back in any way that matters, though.
So,
it's not like her mental connection to this is important in the third act or anything.
No, it just provides, I guess a creepy thing of her screaming, and then her granddad runs in and is like, are you okay? What's happening? And she goes, I just feel something bad has happened.
I guess maybe she shares the Van Helsing family Dracula sense.
That could be it. That could be it. Now, in that scene where Dracula's not pleased that it's not Jessica. Mm-hmm. Is that the one where Johnny finally says,
when we come back? Yeah. Because if we cut to this, then we cut back to Johnny going, hey, look, man, I think I've already done a lot for you. You fucking owe me. And he says, I demand you give me immortality. And this lead delivery of, you demand?
Yeah.
Love it.
And Johnny also says, and finally clears up one of the mysteries that, I mean, no one in the theater was really tracking this, but sitting there going, is this guy the same guy from the beginning or not? We don't know.
Right.
He says, my entire line.
Yeah.
It's like, you promised my entire line, and we have done your wish.
I mean, for the love of God, we changed our family name to your name backwards.
Yeah, exactly. So we now know he's not the same guy. He is the descendant of that guy.
Which I do like the idea of a family line of people who helped Dracula. I do like that idea.
And just like going, look, 100 years from now, whatever, you're going to need to do this, okay?
Can I tell you what I would rather his name be?
What?
Johnny Renfield.
Johnny Renfield. I like that much better.
Because the entire family that's aided Dracula, it's the Renfields. That's at least a play on the mythology of Dracula.
canonically, we don't know if Renfield had a family. They never mentioned
That's what
he
I
had a
mean.
wife.
You could do that, and also that's famously Dracula's, guy.
Go
So
to roles.
I'm just saying.
Why didn't they do that?
Yeah.
Anything is better than Alucard.
Yeah.
Literally anything is better than Alucard. Anyone who finds that clever,
and still, Van Helsing would have been like Renfield.
They didn't find that clever in 1941.
Actually, that would have been better because he would have just heard Renfield and not had to work out the dumb little puzzle. He would have just been like, Renfield.
Wait, what's Renfield backwards? That's what. Let's see.
Was it delayed? Oh, delayed.
There's an F in there somewhere.
Renfield, yeah.
Delifner.
Yeah.
Delifner. He would have been Johnny Delifner, and then Van Helsing would have gone, wait a minute, that sounds familiar.
Look, the one thing I will not budge on in this screenplay, there will be a backwards name, and Van Helsing will figure it out.
God damn it.
And I also love this little...
Well, are they doing that again?
I do love this little mini monologue too that Dracula has about I have returned to destroy the house of Van Helsing.
Yeah.
I'm like, this is the shit I want, man.
That is the shit I want.
Yeah, it goes, young and old shall be destroyed.
The movies are never giving us that. It literally is, though, Tomb of Dracula. It is that comic.
Yeah, it is. Tomb of Dracula is one of the best Dracula stories. It really is. I love Tomb of Dracula.
Very 70s, but it's great.
Yeah, it really is. And meanwhile, we cut to Van Helsing pulling a cross out of a box, which I love this. But then it cuts to Johnny having been bitten. He is a vampire now. Very fast vampire turn, and he disposes of Gainer's body.
That, again, that's where some of the modernness, 1972, but modernness of it does sort of rub up against, it's like crime procedural thing. And again, he's not clever at all. He literally has the body in a bag and dumps the body down an embankment into the river. I'm like, wow, no one will ever find her, man. That was smooth. So yeah, he dumps her, and he is now a vampire.
Yeah, he's a vampire. Meanwhile,
we immediately cut to, and this was the big shocking. I was very surprised at this cameo. Is this where we cut to the surprise cameo by Chelsea Peretti?
A not yet born Chelsea Peretti? Yeah.
It's weird. There's a shot of this laundromat, and it is a woman who, like a happening hippie woman who's smoking in the laundromat, who looks very much like Chelsea Peretti.
She does.
And I was like, wow. She gets no dialogue. She and for a second you're like, why am I watching this attractive hippie lady doing her laundry?
It's just about Johnny's outside watching her, being like,
She leaves the laundromat, and Johnny looks at her leave, and then he smiles, and we see his fangs, and he's like, yeah, I want that. And we find out later that she was killed, and we get a name for her.
We do.
But it was not Chelsea Peretti, because as you stated, she has not been born yet.
No, there's no way. But we then see Van Helsing put the cross around Jessica's neck as she's sleeping. We also see him go to a church and fill up a little vial or a little flask with holy water.
Yep. I love that kind of stuff. I love Van Helsing preparation scenes.
Indeed. Oh yeah, we're still 6 years away from Chelsea Peretti being born.
Okay. But there's a did we already see vampire Johnny grab the cross yet?
No, that has not happened yet.
Okay.
Instead, we see Van Helsing fill up the holy water. Then he goes to the police, which is where they tell him there have been more murders.
Yes.
And he says, let me guess, there are puncture wounds on the neck. Because the thing they've been doing, Johnny's been slicing the throats to make it look like, but he didn't do that for the girl he killed, and so there are puncture marks. And Van Helsing's like, so it is a vampire.
See, I did that in my my vampire werewolf screenplay. I had the vampire serial killer just slashing their throats after he drained them.
I like that idea.
Sure. It's just a cover.
Yeah. And so yeah, he's doing that, and then we get a whole thing because we have to about Van Helsing telling the cops all about vampires, how to kill them, blah blah blah. They're this and that, and it's like, we know, man, we get it.
Like sunlight, they don't like that shit.
They brought back running water though, and that will be important. Although I think this is a better running water sequence than
it is, but we'll talk about it. That sequence I laughed very hard through.
But I do like, then we see Van Helsing go home, and we see him ready his holy water and pull out his silver blade.
Yeah. Yeah.
Nice.
This is the shit I want.
I like it a lot. Anytime there's like a gearing up Van Helsing sequence, I'm like, yeah.
That's what I love.
Let's do it, man. Let's fuck up some vampires, Van Helsing.
Fuck them up.
Yeah. And so now Bob comes to see Jessica. He says, oh, yeah, our other friend, I guess her name is Gaynor, she's dead. So anyway, you got to come with me because we got to look into this.
Now, before this, you did miss the one little scene where Bob shows up at the closed cavern. The cavern, their coffee house, has been shut down by the cops for drug stuff or something. But Bob goes to the closed for business cavern, opens the place from the back door, and you hear Johnny Alucard go, "Hey, Bob, I'm back here."
That's right. So it's so quick, I didn't even write it down.
It's very quick, but I
forgot about that because that sets this up. Because he then brings her to the this is the cavern, yeah.
It's the cavern. And she's like, well, there's nobody here. Why are we here? And then Johnny's like, hey, guess what? I'm totally a vampire now. And she's like, no. And then she turns around and Bob goes, yes. And Bob's a vampire now.
Everyone's a vampire.
So clearly,
which I kind of like. I like that we've seen more vampires in these movies.
I like that too.
Yeah,
and also that's a mild shock. But you think that the love interest,
well, I thought Bob had been hypnotized. That was my first thought.
I kind of did know he would be a vampire, but I was happy that happened because
that was way cooler.
She's like, no. Because
then we don't get some dumb happy ending where the two of them are kissing or whatever. Right. I like this. It's like, Bob's a fucking vampire, man.
She's trying to back up and get away from them, and she gets tossed on top of, I just love it, a 1970s jukebox. It is just awesome. Because
and boy, oh boy, do they make sure she leans that chest right into camera. That's right, baby.
Oh, there are a couple of shots where it is framed by her heaving bosom that I was like, good Lord, that's subtle.
The stuff. Anyway, Dick Bush behind the camera going, that's the stuff.
It was Dick Bush.
We have Dick Bush back. I saw him in the opening credits here. And I giggled again like a schoolboy.
Bring back.
Tee-hee.
More Dick
Bush is filming this movie.
So she, as if she's just powerless to resist, she's just laid out on the thing. And Bob starts going in. Like, seriously, like, not only is he going to bite her, he also feels her up, which is very uncomfortable. And Johnny's the one going, no. You can't do that shit because the master won't. She is not for us.
She is not for us. She's for the master. She's for the master, exactly. And meanwhile, Van Helsing is trudging around the streets of London. I don't know, just looking to sniff out vampires. I don't quite know what he's doing. But we just get this montage of like, do Van Helsing on the streets.
He doesn't know where to find anybody. I think he did know about, he had heard about the cavern. And what's also weird is there's a whole point with him and the inspector, and I can't remember where it falls, but the sort of the end of the movie is him going, I have to find out where Dracula is. And you're like going, you've only heard of two places mentioned so far. And
well, it's not that one, so it must be this one.
Yes, Jessica and Johnny have been tied to the cavern, which is closed for business. That would be a good spot. But also the Black Mass, and where at least one of the bodies has been found.
Yeah, maybe start there, including the fact that it's at a soon-to-be-demolished church. That seems like prime Dracula's place. You know? And
they find Gaynor's body, or maybe the woman from the laundromat, but they find it literally like 2 blocks from the church.
Once again, there is
You're like, there's
how is a church scheduled for demolition? How is Van Helsing not like that's where he is?
I know. So that it unfortunately paints Van Helsing in an unflattering light because the screenwriter could not be bothered.
But they have this whole montage where he's stalking around the streets, and I'm like, what is he looking for? What is he hoping to? What clues is he going to discover on the streets?
Well,
I really wanted to see him hand money to an informant at some point.
At this point, he also knows that Jessica is missing.
Mm-hmm.
So there's this one part in that montage that kills me. It is a close-up of a mannequin in a store window.
Yes,
that has the same hairdo as Jessica, which is a very trippy.
It stops him in his tracks.
And again, I felt bad for Peter Cushing because this is a directorial thing that I'm going, you look at it, it reminds you of her, and I want to see distress on your face. Mm-hmm. So it's this embarrassing thing of him looking like, is it just, no, it's only a mannequin. And he puts a hand to his head.
Cushing does everything he can to sell this moment, but it's so silly.
Jessica's missing and that mannequin looks just like her.
He busts into the store and destroys the mannequin for taunting him. How dare you!
No, he comes in and goes, this is a reverse situation like in Mannequin on the Move.
My God. It's Dracula, you bastard! You've made my granddaughter a mannequin!
You turned her into a fiberglass mannequin!
Damn you,
Dracula! And he looks at the mannequin and goes, that's all right, my darling. I will never stop till I can turn you whole again. And he steals it.
Quick, does anyone have Andrew McCarthy's number?
Store security. Or, what's his name? He passed away. Who played the gay guy in both Mannequin movies.
Yeah, the only character who's in both Mannequin films.
Yes, and he played, what was his name, like Broadway or something like that?
I believe it is Broadway, yes.
And he was in Designing Women. He was very funny.
Yes, he was very funny in Designing.
He was a very over-the-top gay stereotype, but he was very funny.
Yes, I love me some Designing Women.
The joke would have worked better had I just known his name. If I could have just thrown that out.
Meshach Taylor, and he played Hollywood.
Meshach Taylor, yes, absolutely. Oh, Hollywood, yes.
Hollywood, yes. Yeah, and we unfortunately lost him in 2014. Too soon, man. Too soon.
He was very funny.
He was acting all the way up to the end. He was in a couple episodes of Criminal Minds.
Good for him.
Yeah. So
R.I.P. Meshach Taylor. Man, our podcast, it does go places. It goes weird places.
And even I can't figure out how we get there sometimes.
No.
That's the great thing about it.
It's so weird that people who listen to the last episode are probably still stunned at the 12 minutes in which I gave a very good lasagna recipe. I don't know how I got on
in the
that
moment
subject.
It felt right, though. It felt like, that's what needs to be talked about right now. So Van Helsing called. We already got to that because he called home and found that Jessica wasn't there, so then he's in panic.
There's a housekeeper that was nowhere in the beginning of the movie and suddenly shows up for like 85 minutes at the end of the movie. You're like, where was she? Why is she important? Because
he does go to the cavern.
Yeah.
And finds the cross this is where the guy. Right. Johnny burned his hand on the cross here, which I do like this because they're always like, cross, no touchy, in all the other movies, and they just like back away and give up. I do like that in this movie the vampires are just burning their hands, just tearing them, because it's going to be an instant and done. It doesn't have to be, but it's so many vampires in the other movies are like, she's got a cross, not today.
Yeah, maybe it is about the power of the faith as well, but yes, Johnny Alucard, before he takes I guess hypnotized or unconscious Jessica out of that place, he did grab Jessica's cross off and burns his hand. He's like, yeah, shit, drops it. So yes, when Van Helsing goes to the cavern, which is now empty, he finds Jessica's cross on the ground. Yeah, he recognizes it. And now he's like, where is Dracula with Jessica? And again, I want to lean over his shoulder and go, there are two places. There are only two places that have ever been mentioned in connection, and you're in one of them.
We still have like 20 minutes left in the movie, so we can't get there just yet.
Oh my God. He's like, I'll never find her. Jesus Christ.
Luckily, as he comes out of the cavern, Anna, who's the blonde girl,
she shows back Van Helsing after 85 minutes.
Runs up to Van Helsing and goes, "Oh, I know where Johnny Alucard lives."
Yeah.
I specifically didn't tell the police, but since Jessica's missing, I'll tell you now.
Yeah, she literally says like, "Well, I didn't tell the police."
Yeah,
but now, and I neglected because she is such a non-character in this. Even though I don't think the actress is bad, but they just don't have anything for her to do.
No.
She also survives. I forgot it was Monk Dude.
That's right.
Her and Jessica. So 3 of the hippie people do survive this movie.
This is Janet Key who plays Anna.
Yeah, sure.
I said we saw her in The Vampire Lovers. That's right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. She did a handful of things, like BBC stuff mostly. A lot of these people, obviously.
Not being so condescending. Yeah, she had
never was on Foyle's War though, so I don't care. So now he knows where Johnny Alucard is, and I do like this, where Johnny's like walking out of his bedroom, and Van Helsing's just in his living room, and he's like, "Where's my granddaughter?" That's badass Van Helsing.
Yeah.
And
you won't find an argument. No. I'm down for this.
No, like I said, the stuff with Van Helsing is mostly great here.
He's on the hunt too.
He is. I mean, who's not in the movie though for a long time is Dracula.
Yeah,
there's the problem. But he is on the hunt, and I love it. And Johnny's a real piece of shit to him here. He's like, well, I know. Where do you think your granddaughter is? It's like she's gonna. And he's got black candles. Oh shit.
Well, we see this is hilarious too. When Johnny comes home, when Johnny comes marching home again, hurrah, hurrah!
You beat me by like 2 seconds on that one.
he opens his coffin, but at first I was like, that's just like a chest. But he opens it up and he's pulling out. He's like packing. He pulls out a bunch of the shrouds and he pulls out these black candles.
Yeah,
and you're like, what the fuck? Then Van Helsing shows up, and Van Helsing also goes, and where are you taking those? Johnny holds up the candle and he goes, what do you think we'll be doing with this?
Yeah, he goes, it's gonna be a wedding. Don't you want to give away the bride?
Yeah, it's gonna be a wedding.
And then Johnny's big move is to just chuck that candle at Van Helsing.
Yep.
And Van Helsing just dodges it pretty easily.
Listen, Hammer is all about the forces of evil who have supernatural abilities, picking up things close by and throwing them at mortals.
This is a move Dracula taught him, because that's a real go-to Count Dracula move in these movies.
He does it later in this movie.
To be like,
he does it later in this movie, and it's the biggest callback to the first Dracula film. He picks up a candlestick and throws it at
Dracula's
Van Helsing.
big move is like, yes, I know, Van Helsing. In fact, I was too.
It'd be great if they have like a close-up just of his hand while he's talking, just searching for something.
Yes,
closing on, like,
I see you have me cornered, Van Helsing. I suppose you have the upper hand here, but
It'd be great if he goes, I wouldn't want you to get hit by a snow globe.
Oh, damn.
Oh, God, it's so ridiculous. But
it's so consistent in these movies. I love it.
Johnny does that, and Van Helsing goes, oh, well, do you think you're going to go see your master now? I don't think so, because it's daylight.
Yeah.
And Johnny looks at the windows like, oh, that's pretty bad.
Yeah.
And
they told me to avoid daylight. That's like, it was in the book about being a new vampire.
Yeah, my great-grandfather left me some notes about what things to do. But Van Helsing then has fallen close to a mirror, and he's like, ooh. And he starts bouncing reflected sunlight.
Well, first he chucks a Bible into the coffin.
Oh, right.
A Bible with a cross wrapped around it.
He's wrapped a cross around the Bible, tosses it into Johnny's coffin, and he goes, right, it's daylight. Where are you going to sleep now? And Johnny is pissed. He goes, take it out.
I do love Johnny's going, take it out.
Take it out. And Van Helsing's like, don't feel like it.
Yeah, Van Helsing's like, why would I do that?
Yeah, exactly. What?
I have the upper hand here.
Then Johnny is really angry, and again, the supernatural creature grabs a weapon.
Mm-hmm.
He grabs a knife, he stabs.
He pulls a switchblade.
Pulls a switchblade.
Yeah.
Vampire with a switchblade. Again, not a bad title.
I kind of love it.
He gives Van Helsing a slash across the arm, so it's Peter Cushing going, "Ah," and he falls.
Mm-hmm.
That's when he finds the mirror, and then he starts bouncing sunlight on Johnny. And Johnny's like, "Ow, that fucking hurts."
Oh, I love him bouncing this on the mirror and just being like, yeah, and angrily. He's like, hey, ow.
And he starts using it like he keeps forcing Johnny. Johnny's like trying to get upstairs, and Van Helsing keeps going, "Found you again. Found you again."
I know.
Still hitting you with the reflected sunlight.
I love it, man. That's fun.
In order to get away from that terrible, terrible sunlight, Johnny Alucard goes into his bathroom. His swinging hand, as he closes the door behind him, happens to grab a curtain thing.
Something like that.
Like the pull of a curtain.
Yeah.
And apparently, I don't know if this was common in 1972 Chelsea, but his apparent bathroom has a sunroof.
Yes.
That had a curtain, and he has inadvertently...
I think he put the curtain up when he turned a vampire so that it wouldn't get him. That's my theory.
Right. But he has inadvertently fucked himself by yanking the curtain down, and he is now full-on blasted with sunlight. He's like, ah!
And then it gets even worse for this guy. Stumbles
into his bathtub
and turns on the faucet, starting the shower on himself.
This is where I laughed and laughed, because it was almost like a Simpsons gag where someone's like going, "I'm gonna get you," and has like a big machete, and then trips and stabs himself with the machete, and then they're like, "Ah!" and then runs into a room full of rifles and trips, and the rifles all shoot him. And he's like, "No, no, no!" and his kicking leg hits a TNT plunger and then blows himself.
I'll tell you what this made me think of. What TV show I thought this was referring to? I wanted Van Helsing to say, "Well, that was a freebie."
Yes. Yeah. Because that was Johnny Alucard offs himself.
He does. I love it, but it's dumb, but I also kind of love it.
Still, it's interesting.
Well, and I like Van Helsing. To be fair, I do like although I wish Van Helsing had put him in the shower, obviously. But Van Helsing questioning him as the water's coming up around him is pretty cool.
Yeah, they actually kind of, they didn't go crazy on effects with this bit, but I was was surprised that he just reacts to the sunlight. He's like, and we don't see him burning. So once he's in the bathtub, we do see boils or blisters on his face. But I mean, he's been hit by full direct sunlight for 5 minutes now, and all he's doing is going, and then when he's in the water, he's like, ah. And yes, Van Helsing goes up there, goes, "You know you're about to die, right? You're totally totes about to die, so tell me where Jessica is." He goes, "I'll never tell you."
Mm-hmm. I like that. So once he's in the shower and he's dying, I think this is cool.
Yeah, no,
the way he gets into the shower is very cartoonish and what? Oh no!
The circumstances are dumb, but both actors,
good stuff.
I'm giving Neem, whatever his name is.
I think he's good, and clearly he keeps working and stuff, and he's a good actor.
I also think he was good casting visually, because here he doesn't come off
that McDowell, and that's why I said the Malcolm McDowell kind of. He's got the sinister kind of dark,
severe cut cheekbones that are very dramatic, and I was like, I buy this guy as being a wicked, decadent hippie dude, and then I could totally buy him as a vampire. I could easily see him as being one of the bunch of the Lost Boys.
Oh yeah. Oh.
Jumping to a decade or two later.
Little sister.
Yeah. I still believe. I just wanted a huge dude with a shirtless saxophone player.
Oh, the sexy sax man.
Sexy sax man.
Which, if you haven't, everybody needs to read the sequel comic book to The Lost Boys that came out a few years ago, because Sexy Sax Man.
Frog Brothers? Because they did a comic series that was about the Frog Brothers.
No, they did a sequel that that really feels like the next movie. Tim Seeley did it. It's really good, but Sexy Sax Man becomes a main character in it.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. That oil on him, he's all oiled up. That's blessed, man. They can't touch him. It's so good. It's so good. Turns out he's a vampire hunter.
That actually, back in the day, literally, because that movie came out when I was in high school.
Mm-hmm.
That soundtrack, that was on my tape deck.
Oh yeah. People are strange.
Oh, the cover.
You're strange. Yeah.
Great. It has like the original and a cover on that thing. And
I love that movie so much. I'm a huge Lost Boys fan.
Shall not kill.
Yeah. Oh, so good, man. Lost Boys.
We will be covering Lost
We
Boys
will.
just
We
because
will.
we want to talk about it because
it's
a great vampire movie.
There's a lot of good 80s vampire movies we'll be talking about.
There are indeed.
Yeah. And there's so many werewolf movies in the 80s. So let's see. So now, he's dead. The police bust in and find Johnny drowned in the tub, and Van Helsing has a cut on his arm that they're dressing. And this is where he says to them, he's like, "Look, just give me 1 hour to find Dracula." Like, basically, forget the law. I'm gonna have to go kill this undead monster. You guys just turn a blind eye. I'll handle it.
Which is kind of like the end of the Night Stalker TV movie well, where it's Kolchak and the FBI guy. Like, this is off the books. We have to do this ourselves. But so it's that's great. And also there's a thing when they bust in and he goes, "There's your proof."
Yeah.
There's your
goddamn proof.
There's your fucking vampire, right? All right? And he goes, "If only I can find where Dracula is." And everyone in the movie theater just stands up and goes, "Come on!"
He goes to the church immediately after this scene.
Yeah, he does. And he starts laying traps.
He does. He first finds Bob's body just baked in the sun.
He does have to find the right plank to get through the...
God damn it. Yes, he does. He does have to find the right plank. Which then when he comes in, though, I like that they've just left Bob out in the sun.
Yeah.
Fuck that guy. We're done with him. We only needed him to get...
I like that, too, because it was brutal. We didn't even see it. We only see the after effect. And
Dracula's just like, leave him outside.
And you're like, that's harsh.
I don't need him.
I don't want any guy thralls. I want the boobs.
Yeah, we also do have Van Helsing, we have Dracula here going, "I shall turn the last Van Helsing." That's his big play. That's how I'll get him. I'll make the last Van Helsing a vampire. I love it. Oh, that's good stuff. There's a good movie in here, and I'm really latching on to the positives of it.
Oh, and you should. But that's why I keep seeing this whole movie, even though I enjoyed it. Mm-hmm. It's just a missed opportunity. Because there are obvious places to go with the story that any writer would have followed.
More Dracula, less Johnny Alucard.
More Dracula, and more Dracula in 1972. Yes. Not Dracula in church. He never leaves.
I'll wait here. You go out there. Yeah, I don't want that.
I'm like, I'm sorry. Are you in quarantine? Are you constantly calling Uber?
It's one of the only scenes I like in.
Johnny Alucard is Uber Eats in this thing. He's bringing him food.
It's true. It's true. I was gonna say though, it's one of the scenes I actually like in Blade Trinity, where Dracula's walking around modern day and he's seen Dracula products and stuff like that, and him just being like, "So this is what I've been reduced to." Like, that's good. I like that.
Yeah, I told you about my Dracula film trilogy, and in the middle one, which took place in 1929 to 1931, one of the scenes is I have Dracula watching Bela Lugosi's film,
right?
And the audience is loving it, and he's just sitting there, and it's just sinking in how a cartoon he is, how much of a cartoon.
Yeah, I mean, and I said that worked in Blade Trinity, of him going into like a store of vampire stuff and being like,
there is I just admire you for finding good things in Blade Trinity.
There are good moments in Blade Trinity. It's another problem though, where there's not enough Blade is my biggest problem.
Oof.
Where is Blade in that movie? He just disappears.
Dude, you got Jessica Biel.
Yeah, great, yeah.
You need
I love Ryan Reynolds, but I don't need Ryan Reynolds in my Blade movie.
I don't need any peanut butter in my chocolate. I don't need any chocolate in my peanut butter.
Very angry teenage me sitting in the theater watching that going, "I believe I paid for Blade. Excuse me, where is Blade? He has not been on screen for 20 minutes. Some of us are here for Mr. Wesley Snipes.
I came to this film understanding that Orson Welles would be the third man I have seen very little of Mr. Wells in this film. Where is Harry Lime?
I've had enough
All
of
I'm
this
getting is
Joseph Cotton. It's enough already with the cotton. Even jokingly, I need to say I actually love Joseph Cotton. I'm a huge Joseph Cotton fan.
I am a huge classic Joseph Cotton, but he's one of those where the downslope is painful.
That is true. But
by the time he's in Lady Frankenstein, which have you put on our list?
Yeah, I believe that is on there. Yes.
Oh God. Oh God.
It is sad because I think Joseph Cotton is great in those RKO movies and stuff like that. Yeah.
He is a rock of the Mercury Theater. And,
oh my God, he's so good. He's so good
yeah.
in Kane. He's so good in Third Man. Fucking Shadow of a Doubt, which is not a Wells movie, but is a great one of my favorite Hitchcocks.
He only makes noises because he's so good in those movies.
He's so good, and then he's in Fibes though.
Yes, and he looks a little tired and drunk, but it's not one of the bad ones of his.
No, it's not as bad as it's gonna get. So yes, now I do love Dracula or Van Helsing preparing for battle. He's got his little bag of weapons. We see him burying stuff. I'm like, what's he doing? Where's this going? I'm on board. And basically from here on out, I'm on board with this movie. I do like the end of this movie a lot. Because we finally get a proper like mano-a-mano Dracula fight here.
Mm-hmm.
And because Dracula's gone out in some dumb ways, I like the way Dracula goes out in this movie. And I like that there's a fake out Dracula going out where you think they've got him.
But he does have a kind of a
They can't resist that. That always is the problem I have. Don't you want a more like gutter, like
yes,
like I want that.
Like,
Instead, he's like
I'm sorry, could you guys not afford the Wilhelm scream?
Yes, and I love it because Cushing busts into this church and is like, Count Dracula!
And it is awesome. I will say, hey, Van Helsing, you've done a great job getting everything set up. Maybe, well, I know, okay, he's worried about Jessica. That actually does excuse it, because I'm like going, it's fucking nighttime. It's fucking midnight, and you're going to face Dracula.
Well, they set that up though, because when he goes in and finds Jessica, and he puts the cross around her, and he says, only he can wake you from this. So whatever spell he's put on her or whatever, he has to wait for Dracula to wake her before he can fight Dracula.
When he goes into the church, she is laying on the altar.
They actually figure that out. That's a rare moment for Hammer, where they have a screenwriting device that makes sense.
Also, he's under the gun because she's with Dracula. So every minute he's not there could be a minute where he's turning her.
Right.
So he gets there.
He has only the matter of time between when he wakes her and when he turns her to get him.
Right. And so he gets there, and she's on the altar.
Yeah.
And she's in the skin tight thing. So again, it's like, cleavage shots.
I haven't made a comment about this movie yet, but I have enjoyed it immensely.
Excuse me, Mr. Editor. Could you zoom? Is there a zoom feature?
Can we zoom in? I enjoyed that shot on top of the jukebox.
Projectionist, is there any possibility of...
Can we get in a little closer?
Can I buy that frame? Could you clip it? Just one frame.
Are we doing that yet?
I could blow that up. That could be a wall art piece.
Don't worry. At this point, the wife is gone, so I don't have to answer anybody. That's going up on the wall. That picture of Stephanie Beacham is my wife now.
That was weak. I don't have enough saliva. Let me try again.
That was concerning.
I know. Oh my God, Brennan's
what's going on over there?
I just need more spit. Nope, still don't have it.
Nope.
But anyway, she looks great. But what I was saying about that scene is, he plays it so great because he is Peter Cushing. He runs in that moment where he sees her, the alarm, the fear. Mm-hmm. He rushes to her and he checks her pulse.
Yep.
And then he's like, "Thank God."
Yeah.
Yeah. And he just sells it. You're like going, yeah. Plus, the audience was like, damn, is she turned too? Mm-hmm. Because we've seen they'll make her boyfriend a vampire. We're like, that would be dark if she turns vampire.
Oh God, yeah. But he puts the cross around her neck because then we get Dracula going to remove the cross. It doesn't just burn him; it lights his hand up.
Yeah,
I like that.
But he still yanks it off. Mm-hmm. He's still like, look, I know this is going to hurt, but.
And the thing I like here, though, is when he sees that it's Van Helsing, Dracula looks afraid for the first time in the movie. Like,
yeah. Well, but here's the thing: he doesn't automatically. I mean,
no, because
he knows
Van Helsing says, "Look on me and remember."
Yeah,
and he's like, and he goes, shit, this guy killed me last time.
You look exactly like your grandfather.
And
I mean, exactly.
And this expression leads me to another Arrested Development reference because it looks like Dracula saying, "I've made a huge mistake."
I've made a huge mistake.
Yeah.
I like also later in the film he goes, "No touching."
Yeah.
No touching.
No touching. And then
and the movie ends with Van Helsing eating an ice cream sandwich.
Dracula leaps towards Van Helsing. Van Helsing leads him up the stairs of this church up to the next level of it, and so we have a little bit of a Van Helsing Dracula chase, all with a
I'm sorry. We haven't mentioned it enough. The score doesn't work in this movie at all. There are moments in this movie that might have been pushed over into good territory or likable territory that are ruined by, and I know what their thinking was. But it sounds like really weak sauce attempt at blaxploitation kind of.
I was gonna say the score definitely leans more towards 1972 than it does towards Dracula.
Yeah, and it will occasionally do like bombastic horror that then suddenly you'll hear the wacka wacka guitar come in. And you go, this does not blend. I know you're trying, but it's not working. So yes, Dracula and Van Helsing rush up, I guess, the belfry of this church.
Yeah, and they tussle a little bit. They grapple, as I am here for.
Did Dracula at this point throw the candlestick? At which point?
I think it's here.
No, at this point, I think it's here. Yeah,
it is here. But the candle misses him. But Van Helsing gets that blade right in him. Not in the heart, though.
No. They never figure out where the heart is.
Well, but I think he's not supposed. It's not supposed to be his heart here because he hasn't killed him.
No, but he does feel it because that's a silver blade. So he sinks and Dracula's like,
it does a backflip off of the balcony there and falls.
Yeah, and he goes, oh,
yeah. He goes.
This is what's disturbing is that Jessica wakes from her trance.
Yeah.
But I mean, she's still in a trance, but she wakes from the sleeping state.
And he goes,
eyes is like she's
Jessica, no! Don't go anywhere near him! Don't step to him!
This is interesting is that Van Helsing is still up in the belfry giving this plenty of time to happen downstairs. He's like, don't do it, Jessica, don't do it.
It's only when she's right near him that he actually starts running down the steps.
Yeah, I would be like, maybe I should run downstairs right now. But no, he waits long enough to where she pulls the knife out, and Drac just gets up.
Yeah, and then it's like, oh shit. And so then now Dracula is chasing Van Helsing out into the cemetery at the front of the church. And luckily, though, this is all kind of part of Van Helsing's plan.
Van Helsing trips like the final girl in a slasher movie. He trips and hits.
This is a calculated move, is it not?
It is, but at least right here it's like, oh no, I broke a heel
because he pulls back the open to reveal the open grave full of spikes.
Yeah, he's made a tiger trap.
Yeah, out of stakes, and that stops Dracula's tracks. And he's like, "Uh-oh." Once again, I may have walked into something here.
Yeah, it's interesting that he reveals it to Dracula because one of the things you do with tiger traps is you're not supposed to show it to them because then they can avoid it.
But it seems like this is the move to stop him as he sees that, so he can get to he can pull out his flask of holy water. And he is like, by the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. He's spraying him with holy water, and Dracula's burning. And he goes face first into this tiger trap.
Yep. He gets staked in various places.
And I thought, ooh, that's awesome. But then I thought this was even more awesome because
I know why you loved this.
Van Helsing grabs the shovel and uses the blade of it to push Dracula further onto the stakes.
So you see the stake finally poke through the back
and the
of
blood
Dracula.
is just pouring out of it.
And they do a sound effect. They do a full-on, like, popping of the back sound effect, and then, like, a fountain sound effect for the blood. It just literally goes... It kind of does like a sprinkler sound.
I love it so much.
And the blood is coming out. And instantly, we see Jessica wake from her trance. And she comes outside, and she's like... Then joins her grandpa as Dracula decays.
Yeah, we see him turn into the skeleton and then to nothing. And she's crying because obviously she's been through a lot, and he holds her.
Oh, and she also sees Bob. I mean, there's not a lot of time. She looks down at the ground.
Very upset about that, too.
And she's like, oh, shit.
And he holds her as the movie says, not the end, but it says, rest in final peace. I like that.
Well, there was a runner, not that it was a very big runner, but...
well, by runner you mean it was mentioned earlier.
Well, every time they showed Lawrence Van Helsing's gravestone, which was about 4 times in the movie, it had a Latin inscription on it. So at the end of the movie, Van Helsing comforts his granddaughter, for some reason, by saying that term, the Latin phrase. He says it. And then on screen, because they knew that the audience is sitting there going, what the fuck was that? They then tell you that it translates as rest in final peace.
Yes. And so I like that the movie ends with rest in final peace. I like that.
Mm-hmm. Even though they knew full well that there were some satanic rites that were coming up.
By the way, if you're making these back to back, and on a cliffhanger.
Word to your mother, John.
Just huge missed opportunity to be like, he saves Jessica, but he fails to kill Dracula.
Like missed opportunities.
Can I pitch you the final shot? Do this same movie. Pitch you the final shot.
I'm ready.
We cut to the center of London.
Mm-hmm.
Dracula stands looking around at all of it and cackling like a madman as he looks at the city he's about to take in movie 2.
I love that, but the audience would still be like, but this is the way you solve that problem. No dialogue needed. Mm-hmm. No extended scene. You show exactly that. But you show monk guy or blonde girl standing next to him. So you know who came after Van Helsing left to resurrect him. Character that you had written off earlier in the movie.
Now there's your ending. To be continued.
Yeah, you end up with one of the others having been a thrall. See?
Dracula.
Yes. I did like, there was one shot in this movie, which I'm sitting there going, I literally think that it was just Christopher Lee kind of goofing around and they just decided to put it in there. Mm-hmm. It was one shot of him in the church. There's no dialogue to it. And it's even in slow motion that he just twirls. He walks forward into like a shaft of moonlight and he does this twirl so his cape kind of goes around and then he just stops and looks up at the window and I'm like going, it's both cute and kind of awesome Dracula, and the cape is a nice one, but I was sitting there going, I was like, what did that do other than look how pretty I am, look on my prettiness. Okay, so we've got one more Christopher Lee and 2 more Draculas. Mm-hmm. What did you think, my friend?
I am in favor of this movie, ultimately. I think, ultimately, this movie is enough fun that it's worth watching. And it's certainly much more enjoyable than many of the other Dracula sequels.
I agree. Yeah. I agree. And again, Lee is almost always enough to sell it, but
like I said, I'm excited whenever he's here. But Cushing puts this over the. It shows you how much they needed Cushing in the other Dracula films. That's what's been missing.
And really actually,
did. And luckily,
we're not covering all the films he made for Hammer because he made so many. We're not talking about.
We have 4 movies left, and Cushing is in 3 of them. So,
yep,
we're not going to be too far from Cushing. And the one he's not in is one of my favorites, Captain Kronos, of course.
Seems to me that might be next week.
Well, that's not what I have on the list for next week. So
in release order, Yes.
Is that right? So we go to Captain Kronos next?
Next is actually the British title, Kronos, but we know it as Captain Kronos, Vampire Hunter.
Yes.
Is actually our next film, 1972.
Well, goody. I had two other movies on my list before that, so
Serious?
yeah, but I don't know. You know, the release dates are tough because they release differently in different countries. So I don't know what I'm looking at versus what you're looking at. But I have no problem watching Captain Kronos next because
no, I'm just going by the book I have is of course just doing the Hammer chronology as they were released in Britain because that's always where they were released first. So next is Kronos.
Captain Kronos, Vampire Hunter, which has long been my favorite of the Hammer movies. I love this one.
I don't know if it's my favorite, but I do love it.
It is a swashbuckling adventure vampire movie.
Talk about one that deserved sequels, and as I told you, John, did get sequels in comic book form in the UK.
Yes, which I want to read.
But yeah, they were trying to start a series. Yeah? It did not work.
That's too bad, because Captain Kronos is an awesome character.
He's pretty damn awesome. He's basically Solomon Kane.
Yes. He's got a sword made of smelted crosses.
It's all
He's got a holy sword. Come on. So to continue the Arrested Development references, join us next week for Captain Kronos, Vampire Hunter. Very much looking forward to that. And I may have some insights from because I do have the Shout Factory Collector's Edition of that one. So I
have everything. Mine's made of solid gold. I don't know if you have that one. Do you have that one, Brendan? The one that's made of plutonium. Platinum?
I don't. Yeah, made of plutonium. It's super dangerous.
Yeah. There's in a lead line case. Mine is. Has to be in lead.
Boy, I don't know who's coming off worse with this impression.
Hey, listeners, write in. How dead on is my John impression? Yeah. I think it's spot on.
Spoiled little rich boy.
Just saying, I've been calling your parents for doing that impression. They think they're talking to you. Hi, Mom. Hi, Dad. Hey, listen.
I haven't called in weeks. What do you mean you just spoke to me yesterday?
I did write that check and filled it out to cash. Just like you asked. Anyway.
You just fleecing my parents, but yes.
I am envious of and you'll have to tell me what extras are on there.
Yeah.
But I look forward to it. I do have a nice version that's fairly recent and in good shape, just not quite that one. It's going to be awesome. So join us then.
Absolutely. But in the meantime, that's going to do it for this week's episode of Campbell and Jones Meet the Monsters. I'm John Campbell.
I'm Brendan Jones.
And remember, there are such things as monsters.
See? Better.